Good day, everybody, and just to let you know as well that we are recording this meeting. So by staying in the meeting, you're expressing your consent for this recording. We will be sharing the recording with all the members of the initiative afterwards, as some people would not be able to join us today, unfortunately. So my name is Llorenç Milà Canals, and I'm heading the Secretariat of the Life Cycle Initiative and the Life Cycle work in UNEP. Today we have a great line out of speakers, so I will not stop too much in the beginning. We will jump straight into the substance. I was saying before, we will be using the chat, so if you have questions at any time, please post them in the chat, and we will do our best to answer them either live or in writing. Other important things for you to know, we will be using the Mentimeter as well. So if you want to start getting ready with a browser or your phone, we will be asking a few questions through menti.com, so you can have that page handy. And first of all, so maybe if we can move to the next slide, I will just present an overview of what we will have today. So first of all, we will start with an opening by our director, the director of the economy division, Sheila Aggarwal-Khan of UNEP, so who will give us a brief introductory remarks. Then we will have a very quick and virtual, not a tour de table as usually we would do, but a tour de chat, as we call it. We will ask a few brief questions through Menti just to get us started on that, but without spending too much time. The bulk of the General Assembly, as usual, will be the presentation of the work of the initiative, the progress in the last year, and also the work plan towards the next year. So that will be the biggest part of the time today. We will have a couple of breaks in between. So you can take your breaks and relax and stretch your legs, etc. And then we will be going into the more strategic discussion. So how the current strategy of the initiative is coming to a close, and we will present a little bit the new strategy of the next 5 years. Not to present the strategy, but to present the exercise that we're starting now to discuss and define this new strategy. So there will be a few more topics towards the end in terms of the communication updates, the Life Cycle Initiative turning 20 next year. So that's a reason to celebrate, and we will be wanting to celebrate that with all of you. And then we will open the process for voting of the new steering committee members. So there will be time as well at the end for any pending questions and any other business that may appear. So with that and without further ado, I would like to move now to the first section, and it's my pleasure to present the new director, new since April of the UNEP's economy division, Sheila Aggarwal-Khan. And Sheila, apologies, I still have not practiced enough your surname, but I hope that was close enough.
That was good enough.
Excellent. So then I'll just leave the floors to you, and please thank you for your opening remarks.
Thanks, Llorenç. Very happy to be here and very excited because I think the Life Cycle Initiative is such a key part of today's journey as we look at COVID recovery and what will it mean for building back better. And so we're seeing already very interesting developments. The last ministerial conference on plastics, in fact, asked for the Life Cycle Initiative to look at what it means to have a circular economy in regard to plastics. We're seeing some movements on the COP26 where life cycle thinking is coming into NDCs. And in general, I'm seeing since I've joined the economy division that there is more and more of a look to seeing how can a more circular approach, how can life cycle thinking look into the ways we deal with the climate, pollution, and nature crises in tandem. In the past, I think there was many times people put things in silos. On the one hand, we look at climate, and then we look at air pollution, and then we look at nature. But I think there's much more of a growing recognition of how interconnected these areas are. And, I have one team in the division that looks at e-mobility, and we can see a transition towards electric mobility, especially electric buses. But on the other hand, that's going to mean lots more minerals resource needs in terms of, let's say, lithium-ion batteries. And so unless we look also at the mineral and mining sector, well, we're missing a piece of the, let's say, the puzzle. The same thing with the plastics space. In the beginning, it was all focused, as you all know, on the plastics litter at the end of the pipe. And actually, with the fossil fuel to clean energy transition, we're seeing actually a growth in plastics. So this kind of life cycle thinking, I think, would be so central and picking up so much more momentum as we move forward, that it's going to be, I think, an exciting journey to see how the next strategy moves forward. What are the lessons learned? How do we position the life cycle initiative in terms of the kind of jobs it can create, the kinds of ways in which it can help economies recover, so that it's not just looking at environment and social impacts, but actually the opportunities that life cycle thinking can bring into that space. That, I believe, will be what will get more parties on board, more interested players, so that it's really, you could say, an enabler of building back economies. So I would like to stop there. Just wanted to say thank you to all of you for your interest and your momentum. I've heard so much about how all of you have been so active in this space and really pushing the agenda of life cycle thinking, alongside how we bring in more circular economies, and looking forward to seeing how the meeting progresses. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sheila. That was great, and a good way to start the day as well, and get us all thinking of the importance of life cycle thinking in what we do in UNEP, but also its importance for sustainable development and sustainable consumption and production generally. So with these opening remarks, we will swiftly be moving to the next steps in the agenda. And as mentioned, we will be doing a tour de chat. This is a new term. I guess we're all getting used to it, but of course there's no time for everybody that is participating. I don't see the number of participants now, but it's quickly growing. So we will not have the time to open the floor to everybody. I would just like, maybe first, if you allow me, I'm sorry, but it's important to recognize the big team that is behind and ensuring that this is working. So I'm just asking also the team to maybe if you can switch on your cameras and wave. Rowena, most of you will have received emails from Rowena lately. She's been doing a great job as the intern supporting the Secretariat of the Life Cycle Initiative in the last 6 months. So, well, this will be one of her last meetings with us. So thank you so much, Rowena. We also have Tess, who has been, Tess O'Neill, who has joined recently and will be replacing Rowena in that job. Claudia is also in the background with us today, and she's part of the staff in the life cycle team here in UNEP. We have also Thad, who is supporting the communications.
Hello.
And we have, well, Angelique, who is right now not here with us. She will join a bit later because she's actually in her graduation ceremony right now. And Margarita, who joined as the new intern as well, and will be dealing with some of the other topics of the life cycle initiative. So I hope I didn't forget anybody now, because otherwise I'll be told off later. But let's move to the tour de chat, which actually we will not be doing through the chat. So that's already a bit misleading, but we will be using the Menti. Okay, well, maybe let's go with this question. Yeah, the one that is now open. So if you can go to the Menti, in principle, you should go to the next slide on the top of your Menti, and then you can answer this question where we ask you to write between 1 and 4 words, or short sentences of what you expect of this General Assembly today. So yes, I'll do that as well. And then we can see, yeah, we can see many words already coming in. That's nice. Let's see if any of the words, yeah, inspiration is beginning to get a bit more prominent. This looks good. 2050, wow. Yeah, some of you are really looking far ahead. Excellent. Meet new people. Inspiration is still, well, sorry, maybe now I'm saying it too much. Strategy also getting a bit of attention, but that's great. Participation, update on projects. Of course, you will see a lot of that. We will start right away. Now the words are beginning to get a bit small in my screen, so I will not be able to read them any longer. I would have needed my magnifying glasses today. Anyway, well, that's very good, and I think that was mainly for fun. So probably you can just move to the next one, and maybe, well, just close actually the Menti. Thank you so much for that, and yeah, hopefully that got us on all on the right mood in terms of participation and being inspired. So like everybody, I think we will all be quite inspired with that. So now without further ado, we will be moving into the next, into the first substantive sessions actually. And for this, I want to explain that, well, as we saw in the agenda before, for the biggest part of the day, we will be seeing updates of the different projects from the Life Cycle Initiative. We will start, as you know, with the different programs. So we will start with the first program on technical and policy advice. We will then move to capacity development, and we will end with what we're doing in terms of life cycle knowledge. Just to say that this will be formed of a very dynamic series of mini presentations by each one of the projects. So we've asked the project leaders, some of the project leaders, to introduce to us what is happening in their projects. We have asked everybody to present very briefly, so about 5 minutes of updates of what the project has been up to in the last year and what are the plans for the coming months. And after each one of these presentations, we might have, not all the time, but we might have some minutes to answer any quick questions. So please put your questions in the chat as the presentations unfold, and then if we can, we will pick those questions right after the presentations. Otherwise, we will try and answer them in writing. So hopefully that's clear, and we will start with, oh yes, and for that, I also wanted to say that the time will be managed and kept by Margarita. So you might see her, I mean, hopefully, if you see her screen as well, her video, you might see her waving at you if you're running over time. But otherwise, there might also be an alarm. So if you hear an alarm, that means that you really are stepping out of time. So please stop there. And before I do that, before I step out of my time, I will be introducing our first speaker today. And we will start with this first project on the adaptation and the use of the USEtox model in the context of the SAICM project, the strategic approach to international chemicals management. And for that, I'm introducing Peter Fantke from the Technical University of Denmark, DTU, who is the USEtox managing director since October 2012. So Peter will be speaking about the collaboration that the Lifecycle Initiative and UNEP is doing with USEtox for a number of years now in the context of this SAICM project. So Peter, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Llorenç. Can you hear me well?
Perfectly.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
My camera seems to have a problem, but I think most of you know how I look like, and it doesn't get better over time. So that's just fine. Let's jump into it. I'm excited to present the part of the SAICM project that is related to the USEtox action. We have 4 slides for that to show a little bit the progress, what we have done so far under the project, and also in relation to its impact on the scientific side, but also on the societal side, which we find really important. And the SAICM under UNEP is really a very good hook to disseminate scientific results much beyond the usual suspects as we have in other projects. So the first part is that we support the identification and of substitution of chemicals of concern across various types of consumer products. We focus in the SAICM project, of course, on toys as one of the hotspot product types, children toys. And what we have developed a study here to screen which chemicals are found in toys based on reported and measured data around the world, and then rank these chemicals by estimating exposures using our tools that are developed also under SAICM, but also in collaboration with other projects, developed exposure predictions and then compared them to reference doses or cancer risk factors to see which of them are potentially risky or not. So we ranked them, came up with a list, and that list has been taken up by the media quite well. So we had more than 150 international news media records, from The Sun to La Repubblica and others. And the Danish Ecolabel has 2 weeks ago even extended its restricted substances list based on our article, where we identified more than 100 potentially harmful chemicals in plastic toys for children. I think that's a big success under the SAICM project that I'm happy to promote further, also for other products. Next slide, please. Okay, another part is, of course, exposure predictions are very hard to do. Our models rely on a lot of assumptions. We are missing certain pathways, chemical data, and so on and so on. That is just one of the examples here. Under the SAICM project, we have covered a pathway that was, especially for children, not well covered at all. And that is the chemical uptake into children via mouthing of the toys. So that is something that was usually restricted to some phthalates as the usual suspect chemicals. But for most other chemicals that are out there and also found especially in toys, there were no models available that could give us good predictions of how much of a chemical migrates into the saliva of a child through mouthing. So we developed different types of models, regression models and other prediction tools to estimate mouthing related exposure, compare it to inhalation and other exposure, dermal uptake, for example, for children, and then put it into the modeling framework co-developed under SAICM. So what is important here is that the companies currently working with our tools, like AstraZeneca, in certain cases of, let's say, green pharmaceutical production, H&M for textiles, and Volvo cars for seat materials for cars, for example. We have specific case studies started where they really implement these tools and use them to rank chemicals that they want to potentially phase out in their products. Thank you. Next slide. Then we really go towards a broader application to design more sustainable consumer products. So we don't look at individual chemicals anymore. We really seek to support industry and other decision makers. How can they actually move forward beyond only identifying what's wrong or what's harmful? So here we introduced a new metric. You see it on the right side with MAC, which is the maximum acceptable content or screening level content that we identified. So how does it work? It works, we look at certain products. What you see here on the screen is paints, indoor paints. Here we work with the Sri Lanka paint industry that is really forthcoming and very collaborative on that end. And on the left side, you see solvent-based paints, and on the right side, you see solvent-based binders in paints. And you see certain chemicals, and the green bars mean what is the actual content of each chemical in the paint. And then you see the orange triangles and the blue dots that give you, for cancer, non-cancer respectively, what is the maximum allowable content in the paint or the binder, depending on the potential toxicity and the exposure of each chemical in the paint through mostly inhalation and other things where humans indoors are exposed to. And what it shows is that sometimes we have, for certain chemicals, we are just below with the chemical content below what's dangerous, but for many of the chemicals we are actually above what's supposedly dangerous or harmful, and that is indicated then as a ratio of the green bars and the blue dots or the orange triangles, and that's indicated as a red crosses. So the red axis or crosses show the ratio of how much do we find the chemical in the product versus how much should be maximum allowed to be still very safe. And you see when we hit on the right side higher than 1, that means we have higher content of the chemical in the product than is actually healthy or sustainable. And that is what we can now emphasize and give back to the companies, and they are looking at that and see, aha, if we want to use that chemical, we should actually not go beyond a certain content. So it's a proactive thing. Instead of saying that's all bad, we can say that is useful. If you go for that chemical, see that you don't exceed a certain threshold. That's actively taken up now by the Sri Lanka paint industry, and we are really happy with that. Thank you. Next and last slide, please. Lastly, of course, we are integrating all that into hopefully user-friendly tools. And what we do here not only coupling scientifically the outdoor environment and the near field, the indoor environment around consumer products and bringing it forth to the global consensus model USEtox, but we are also seeking to implement easy-to-use interfaces. So we have just created an interface just for the toy industry where they can just select only from the toy materials and chemicals very simply and get summary results in one view so that they can analyze and study their chemicals and improve their toys. We will do things like that over the years, hopefully also for other sectors, that they have tailored interfaces and can really dig into their stuff more detailed instead of just working with one generic tool. So that's it from my end, and I'm really happy about the collaboration through SAICM, also with the UNEP team, but also with the industry that has been brought on board. Thank you. I think that's it from my end. I didn't hear any alarm, so.
You did really good. Thank you so much, Peter. And I've actually had some issues with Teams as I was speaking. So now I transferred to my mobile. But thank you so much. I'm checking the chat to see if there were any questions. You did really good with the time, as said Peter. So thank you so much for that. And yes, I see Sheila has raised her hand. So please, Sheila, if you want to step in.
Can we ask questions?
Yes, we have some time for maybe a couple of questions.
Just going to ask if there are sustainability standards in place for levels of chemicals in toys or other products. And number two, what happens to that in a legal setting in the country? And then for international trade, how does all that come together?
Yeah, thanks, Sheila, for that question. And now my video also works perfect, so I'm on stage here. So I think we should not mix safety requirements under regulatory safety regulations versus what we consider here sustainable, right? So when we look into the ratio, of course, of what at the screening level might be potentially harmful, that is not the same as when you do a full-blown risk assessment on one chemical in one given product application. Here, what we try to identify is across many toys and toy materials, actually, and the huge chemical space, what are potentially those chemicals we should focus on by replacing them from the market by high priority. And the same can be done by material category. What you do when you do a risk assessment using the safety standards, you look at one particular toy, one particular chemical, and then really do a more detailed risk assessment to see whether you comply with regulatory thresholds or standards or whatever you like. We are a bit further from that because we want to change something before it enters the market. So we want to inform designers and developers of these products to see what can they do already now in order not to enter anything on the market and then undergo a full-blown risk assessment for the final approval. We want to give them something at hand that they proactively can already be on the safe side, so to say, and seek internally, we should go for that and that chemical, but not for this one, if we want to create a new material that contains, for example, a plasticizer or a filler or a dye or something like that. So it's a little bit a different purpose. We are not competing with regulatory thresholds here. We rather really give companies something prospectively at hand that they can do well before they put thousands of dollars into developing new things. Thank you.
I think and hope that answered the question, Sheila. And thank you so much, Peter. That was really good and succinct. I'm not sure if there's any other question. I don't see any other hand raised. So we'll probably just move to the next presentation, and you can take your spaceship, Peter, to go back to your classroom, which I think you have to take now. So thank you so much for making the time and participating today, Peter. And actually, I forgot to mention before that each one of the members of the steering committee of the Life Cycle Initiative will be also participating by introducing the speakers today. So now maybe let me introduce Claudia Peña, who will be introducing me in the next presentation. Claudia? It seems that... Oh, go. Oh, there you go.
Very sorry for the delay. Oh, well, I will introducing Llorenç Milà Canals, who has already introduced himself. Llorenç will be speaking about SCP HAT, as he said. So please, Llorenç, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Claudia. Yes, so indeed, I'll continue, and I'll continue from my mobile. So apologies for that. It seems that Teams is playing up on a few of us today. So if we could move to the next slide, you've all heard about the Sustainable Consumption and Production Hotspots Analysis tool that the initiative has been leading together with the One Planet Network and the International Resource Panel for the last 2 or 3 years now. So today really is more of an update. I mean, this is the general introduction to the SCP HAT, as you've seen before, and you have also the website on your screens that you can use to go and consult about this tool. So today really is a very quick update. If we can move to the next slide, just to keep you up to speed with what's happening with this tool. And we wanted to, well, hopefully generate some excitement that the next version of the tool, version 2.0, will be online shortly. In fact, we've already been testing this new version, and it's been already in the beta version for a couple of months now. We're hoping to finalize all these tests by the end of this month, and at some point in October, in early October, you will all be able to access it. So essentially through the same website, you will access the version 2.0. And this new version brings in a lot of exciting new features. So in fact, we managed to already produce, and this is already accessible, the origin of footprints analysis. This is, I mean, a map that appears in your screens is a result of that. So it shows for each country where, for instance, the footprints of its imports are coming from. So what we see here in the slide is the land use used in other countries that are exporting into the United States. So for imports into the US, we see, well, obviously, as a neighbor, I mean, Canada is one of the countries that uses more land for exports into the US, Australia, which also Russia. So, I mean, these are just some examples, but there's much more that is coming. Particularly, we have a new underlying multi-region input-output table that feeds into the SCP HAT. And this database, by the way, which is called GLORIA, for the Global Resources Input-Output Assessment Database. This database is actually still to be launched, but it's going to be public and available for everybody. It brings the level of analysis up to 97 sectors instead of the 26 that we have in version 1. For many countries, not all countries, because this depends on the data available in the countries, but we have this much finer level of disaggregation that allows us for more refined assessments. We also have the automatic reports or the standard reports that you can download at the click of a button from the SCP HAT, and it tells you for specific countries, well, you know, reports focused on NDCs or on the sustainable consumption and production in that country. We've been working a lot as well in capacity development, capacity building materials. We have expanded the indicator coverage, and we're also enhancing the connectivity between the SCP HAT and other applications like the World Environment Situation Room, which is the one-stop shop in UNEP to deliver data and information about the environment. And specifically, it's informing the common country analysis that the UN is putting together for countries as a basis for the plans for action in countries. We've also been recently contacted by UNIDO, who will be, so the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, who will be inputting the data from the SCP HAT and its underlying database into their toolkit for policy analysis, industrial policy analysis. So if we move to the next slide, we will then also just update you quickly on ongoing applications. Last year, we already mentioned that SCP HAT was being increasingly used by many countries in informing their SCP strategies, sustainable consumption and production strategies. This is now almost, well, the use of SCP HAT has now been finalized in informing Argentina's new sustainable consumption and production strategy. And this strategy will be published in the coming months. So that's one specific example of use of SCP HAT to informing national development policies. We have also ongoing work that has already been publishing a couple of enhanced nationally determined contributions for Vanuatu and the Gambia. So that's been worked on through the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, with their Climate Promise project. And they continue to work on using SCP HAT in other countries. As mentioned, UNIDO is integrating these data into their industrial policy analysis, and the SCP HAT will also be featured as the first step in a new guidance that is being prepared by UNEP, UNDP, and the UNFCCC in how to inform countries' policies to make them ready for a 1.5-degree world. We are also working with the creation of regional centers of excellence. So on this one, you might also want to step forward. We want to help create more capacity in the regions for these regional centers of excellence to be able to support countries in utilizing the SCP HAT in order to have more effective policy development on sustainable consumption and production. So if you're interested, if you're ready to be, to bring more science-driven policy making, please step forward. And I think if we move to the next slide, that actually might be already the end of my presentation. Yes, that's the last slide. And essentially, just a reminder of how you can help. So certainly stepping forward if you want to get involved in these regional centers of excellence, but also you can use the SCP HAT as much as possible, help us spread the word. The icon that you see on the right of your screens is the icon that you can use in the tool itself to send us feedback. So if you spot a bug, if you spot something that could be improved, please let us know. And certainly share it wide and far so more people can use the tool. It's available for everybody. And I hear my time. Thank you very much, Margarita. So that would be the end of this presentation.
Thank you, Llorenç.
And I think
we are
if there are
very
still,
well in
yeah.
time. There is a question in the chat from Sonia Valdivia on the SCP HAT. Are gender woman-related indicator already considered or foreseen to be incorporated?
Yes, thank you very much for that very relevant question, Sonia. So we have one indicator, as far as I can remember, which is the data on employment. So the SCP HAT does not only provide environmental footprints, but also has some socioeconomic indicators, including employment, and as well as contribution to GDP and contribution to Human Development Index. On employment, we have it disaggregated by gender. And I think in the new version, we are also bringing the disaggregation of employment by skills, so highly skilled or lower skilled employment. I believe, the problem with indicators is always the availability of data. So I think certainly we would like to put more indicators on the socioeconomic aspects, but unless we have data available for every country in the world and that is specified by sectors, then it doesn't make for a very easy connection or possible connection with the SCP HAT. But I hope that answers at least partly your question.
There is a couple of questions more. I don't know if we have time for that, but at least one from Gabriel Espinosa. How exactly does the involvement of the excellence centers look like? What are you, sorry, I lost the questions. What are you looking for in a partner and participant?
Excellent. Yeah, that's a very concrete question. I'm afraid we don't have the specifications of the terms of reference for these centers of excellence yet. We're beginning to define them, but in essence, we would hope to. So we would be offering the training. So these centers of excellence, which are probably already working on similar types of analysis, we would train them on the tool. They would then have, well, hopefully the capacity, but then also the possibility to reach out to countries in their regions in order to support specific policy development. The specifics on how this could be done, I mean, certainly, if resources are required, we can help in generating these resources, but in principle, this is something more that, a center of excellence recognized as a center of excellence in using the SCP HAT would be able as well to raise the attention to apply the tool. But again, this is something that we can discuss more in detail soon as we're drafting and defining exactly how this works.
There is one last question from Eva and Alner. How many countries has been using the tool? Are there plans for exchange?
Yeah, that's actually a difficult question to answer.
I know.
Yeah. I know of about 20 countries that have used some way or another the SCP HAT. We actually want to keep updating the list. The problem is we still don't know how many countries have used it as well without our knowledge, which is probably many more. But that's something that we're improving. So I would say that have already used it in informing partly their policies around 20. Officially, we have the ones that have already published things, and I mentioned Argentina, although the publication is coming, Vanuatu, the Gambia, but many more have been using it and without having something published yet.
There is other questions more, Llorenç, but I don't think we'll have time for that.
Possibly not. We will pick them later. I see Sheila has her hand raised, so I'm not sure if maybe Sheila, you want to step in and then we'll move to the next presentation.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, great. So then, yes, I think we need to move to the next one. And thank you so much, everybody, for their interest.
Thank
and
you,
I leave it, I think, to Mrityunjay.
Thank you, Llorenç and Claudia. And it's given me immense pleasure to introduce Rosan Harmens, who works for Peace Sustainability. She will be speaking about SDG project. Over to you, Rosan.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, we can immediately go to the next slide, please. Yeah. So in the last year, in the beginning of the year, we've been able to test our SDG LCA methodology for the first time in a round of case studies. So that was really exciting, and that also gave input for the further development of the two methods that we have. So we're developing a lifecycle SDG screening and a lifecycle SDG assessment in parallel. And that's mainly what we've been working on the past few months, is to really continue with linking LCA to the rest of the SDGs. And we're almost starting a second round of case studies, so that will start early October. And then after that, a case summary for every case study will be published, and the final report as well. We've also had 2 public webinars about the business interest with regards to the SDGs, where also our case study partners joined. And we had 2 presentations at LCM this year, one about the lifecycle SDG screening, and then mainly about the case study findings, and one about the development of the SDG assessment method. Next slide, please. Yes, so with regards to the SDG screening, that is really intended for companies that already have environmental and social LCA results and want to use that for reporting on the SDGs or analyzing their impact on the SDGs. We are already quite far with the SDGs that we have developed. You can see them here on the screen, and the last few ones will be drafted this month, so they are also almost ready. So we've tested this approach with industry partners this year, and it's also led to a number of improvements that we already made, actually, also in the new versions of the SDGs. So that's mainly with regards to how do you deal with SDG targets that are not relevant for a specific case, for example. How can you report on that, and what do you do with that then in the method? the allowance of trade-offs, we have, for example, for SDG 12, actually a lot of LCA impact categories are relevant, or actually all of them. But in our structure that we had, this did not allow for trade-offs between different impact categories, because it had a very blocking effect on your SDG contribution. So that's also relates to the next point about blockers. We had, if you score negative on one of the LCA impact categories, that had a strong blocking effect in being able to say that you actually contribute to one of the SDGs. So we also made a new proposal for that, where we work with red flags and blockers, so that it's not always a strict blocker per se. And this also allows companies to show more about their SDG contribution, actually. And we're working on the integration with the lifecycle SDG assessment approach. Next slide, please. Yes, in the lifecycle SDG assessment track, 3 reports are currently being drafted. One is about the 17 chapters actually that describe all the impact pathways. The second is about data collection guidelines that really can be used by the industry partners, and that advise them on which data to collect in order to be able to do the SDG assessment. And then the final report is about the relative importance of the different impact pathways. And that is really based on the Capitals approach and findings from subjective well-being research. And there is really highlighted which impact pathways are actually most important when looking at the bigger picture. Next slide. Yes, thank you. And in track 3, we're currently working on integrating actually these new findings from the work we've been able to do in this SDG project into the social footprinting method. And that allows also case studies to really apply it. So next steps there are further decomposing the impact with country level data. So that's also will help for the case studies to make it practical, and to finalize the final impact pathway descriptions with both the indicators and the characterization factors related to that. Next slide, please. Yes. So in August and September, we've been working on the update of the methodology and linking the remaining SDGs that were still open. And then from September and beginning of October until end of November, there will be a second round of case studies that really allows partners to apply this improved methodology. And in December, we will work towards the final report. That's it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Rosan. Any question? I can't see any hands or any question in the chat box. Yeah, here is a question. Shall I read it for you? How does the sample of organization engaged in the pilots look like?
Yeah, so we have 4 organizations. 3 of them are based in Europe, but some of them also have like facilities outside of Europe. And then we have 1 company from Japan, and they range from medium to large companies, actually.
Okay, there's another question asking about the first feedback from the companies. Do you want to share any feedback from the companies, first level feedback?
Yeah, so actually it was really nice that some companies indeed already had those existing LCA results, and then it was relatively easy to apply these SDG screening methods. And they also really appreciated that we're working here towards like a streamlined and standardized methodology, so that not every company is doing their own thing with regards to SDG contribution or measuring that, but that everyone is able to to use the same method. And that's really they really there was positive feedback from their side. And the other points with regards to improvements are those that I mentioned in the beginning, so related to, okay, how can we deal with trade-offs, can we do it differently with the blocking issue? So that's what we've been working on also to improve that.
Okay, I can see two more questions. One is on the reporting of the status quo, on the methodology, which would be read. I understand the question. They are asking about the methodology and if there is some reporting available on the status quo.
Yeah, I can share a link in a few minutes about where we have written more about the methodology. So there's a publication from last year about that. And I'm not sure what is meant with reporting of the status quo.
Okay, and the last question is, how do you foresee the extrapolation of results to other regions? So that's the last question.
Yeah, so so far I think those links are very often made can be used quite general. So also by other countries. The only thing is that we're currently using for the environmental impact categories, we're using the environmental footprint method. So that's mainly used in Europe. So there we see that for example, the Japanese company that joined, that brought some difficulties. But yeah, I think that's also relatively easy to overcome in the future.
Thank you, Rosan, for the excellent presentation. Now I think we can move to the next presentation. Over to you, Llorenç.
Many thanks, and actually it will be Tiago. So please, Tiago, step in. Thanks.
Hello, everybody. Directly from the Cerrado Savannah biome in Brazil. I'm very pleased to present you. It's my great pleasure to present you Feng Wang, our dear colleague Feng Wang. Hi, Feng. He's the coordinator on a circularity and waste at UNEP, and formerly worked in the Life Cycle Initiative unit. He will be discussing the national guidance on plastic pollution, hotspotting, and shaping an action. So, thank you.
Thank you, Thiago, for the nice introduction. And it's really nice for me to return to the family and present this work. This is the project I started when I was still working in the initiative. So I'm quite happy to give an overview. This is a very good example to show how we deliver our work through creating knowledge assessment and also through partnership. Essentially, since around 3 to 4 years ago, we started this national guidance for plastic hotspotting, mainly to see that at that time, we didn't have a lot of harmonized methodology to measure the plastic value chain and also the hotspot related to it. And then together with IUCN, we started this project to set up a methodology and tool so that we can guide countries and cities to develop solution. So after so many years, we have made quite good progress and also success. Next slide, please. Just to recap a little bit on the overall guidance, the guidance aimed to map the key hotspot related to the relevant plastic polymers, product, sectors and activities, and also waste management system and geographic locations related to a plastic value chain in the geographic scope, including cities, countries, and this is the main idea to, similarly as any LCA study, to identify the key intervention area by addressing the hotspots. And through the years, we have developed a technical guidance, a set of calculation modules, and also different type of tools to support the data collection. Essentially, everything can be found out in the website of the project. I will paste it in the chat later. Next slide, please. Essentially, just to repeat, by using this type of methodology, we are able to quantify the hotspot in the country or city, mainly to see which are the type of plastic polymers, which are the type of applications, and also which type of the sector causing the leakage of plastic into the environment, and also later on to quantify different type of impact associated with different type of actions of polymers. At the same time, by using GIS and GS and other information to see at a geographic scale where we can see the hotspot at the locations, so that we can also identify solutions. So that's a kind of a recap of what methodology can solve and also can analyze. Next slide, please. The project has been divided into two parts. In the first 2 years, we have developed a methodology and also a supporting calculation modules with a lot of data supporting sheet and also tools that you will be able to download yourself now from our website. In the meantime, working very closely with IUCN, they have acquired more than 1 million funding to test the methodology and the tools in the following countries. So far, with IUCN, we tested in the 8 countries in Africa, Asia, and also in Europe. All the studies you see in the first 3 categories of regions have been already published on our website, where you can download the website and see the result of the evaluation. And we have been also testing that in the city level in Colombia, Jamaica, in Panama. And we have used the result as a baseline in the GEF project. So that's actually a lot of our assessment work, and also the conclusions can be guided, guiding to develop specific intervention on policy and business. So this is where we have quite good some learning experience by designing a tool, applying in countries, and also get feedback from different stakeholders, and then guide actions. So this is an overview for the progress so far. We are also receiving more and more interest to apply that further. Next slide, please. This is just one example to show, this is just one graph to show what we have achieved together with IUCN as a pilot in Kenya. By looking at this graph, I will not go into the detail. The methodology will help us to understand, for instance, which type of the plastic materials or polymer type that dominates the production consumption, and which are the one causing the leakage, and overall into a country or city level, what is the percentage of plastic being recycled? What are the percentage plastic being mismanaged, including being open dumped and also being burnt openly, which will cause different type of pollution. In some cases that we are also able to model the percentage of plastic going to the ocean and other compartments, so that we are able to do a very detailed accounting and also quantitative assessment of the different plastic value chain and also geographic hotspots. And it's just a very one simple example to show what kind of information we can extract at a very high level, but also with granular data by using the guidance. Next slide, please. I will not go into too much detail of the work of the technical work itself, and as I said, I will post the link of the guidance, the tool, and also the report so that you can take a look. In the coming year, together with IUCN and also now with more agencies are interested in our tool, we are looking to different dimensions of further development and application. What we see is that now we have a very comprehensive tool. We are now creating a video tutorial to guide the users to see how do we navigate through different tools or different calculation modules to improve the usability of the the methodology. And also with IUCN, we'll organize a series of technical training aiming for experts who will be using the tool to use it better. At the same time, we are also improving further the technical parts of the methodology so that we can apply it at different levels. And finally, that because we are receiving more and more interest on the success of this model, and we are now applying the methodology to link it to support the new plastic economy global commitment to support governments to develop indicators and measurements towards the achievement of the progress. We are discussing with a lot of agencies like the WEF, GPAP, Alliance to End Plastic Waste to have integration and no collaboration with ongoing and other modeling or database so that we can start to build a little bit more harmonized on modeling and data collection related to plastic pollution. And then finally, we are acquiring and also applying for new project to see how can we actually implement the solutions that's being generated from the analysis so that we are already using that in one JEF project. And also in the future JEF project, we hope that we can use as a standard method to get the baseline data. So this is the overview of the project, and happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Feng. Unfortunately, we have just 1 minute, and I don't see any hands raised or questions in the chat. Any questions? If not, thank you again, Feng. I think that everybody can catch you later by mail or by the link that Llorenç has shared with us. Thank you, Llorenç. Thank you, Feng. So
thank you.
Now my great pleasure again to introduce you our dear friend Claudia Giacovelli. Hi, Claudia. She is a program officer with UNEP's life cycle team, and she will be presenting the work informing how to address single-use plastics products and their alternatives, on which UNEP and the initiative have produced many useful resources recently. So thank you, Claudia. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Thiago, and hi everyone. It's great to be able to share a bit of more information on this topic. We have had Feng already framing the problem of plastic pollution, and what I will be speaking about is a bit more the niche around single-use plastic products pollution. So if we go to the next slide, so as we know, of course, this is a big problem, and it's a significant environmental problem and a global challenge, and we are aware that policymakers wanted more information to be able to compare their alternatives, the environmental impact of alternatives versus the single-use products that are most commonly used. So next slide, please. So in fact, there was a request from the member states during the 4th session of the UN Environmental Assembly in March 2019 that brought about a resolution to address pollution from single-use plastic products. And in response to that resolution, UNEA 49, the life cycle unit, we have basically been working with partners since then to collect information and suggest recommendations on how to best address the single-use plastic product pollution. We have studied various products, and this timeline in front of you, you will see we have looked at bags, bottles, takeaway packaging. We have looked at cups, tableware, nappies, menstrual product is our latest meta-analysis that we published, and we are working to finalize the face mask, and we will soon be starting on looking at supermarket food packaging. So these are all single-use products. What we do is to basically try and collect their meta-analysis that we conduct. So we basically look at different LCA studies that have already published. We compare the findings and we try to draw recommendations that are applicable globally. And the idea is that we want to make the information as easy to understand as possible for policymakers and for LCA practitioners, as well as for the general public, to try and implement actions in the various countries. Next slide, please. So if we were to recap a little bit, what were the main findings of after studying all those products? The main finding that is quite striking is that it is not the single nature of the product that is the most, so it is not, it's not the plastic, the main problem, but it's really the single nature of the product. So it's not that a single-use plastic cap is a single-use plastic cup, for example, would be more problematic than a reusable plastic cup. So it's really the fact that they are single-use, the more problematic element, rather than the fact that they are made of plastic. So the other main finding is really the fact that cleverly designed product should be durable and lighter, so less material is used, which means, and the fact that they are durable, it means that they can be reused several times, lowering the environmental impact. We encourage basically member states to promote reusable products and to keep resources at the highest level in the economy for as long as possible. One caveat is the fact that, of course, there is no one single solution to plastic products pollution. But what we find is that in the context, what is very important is that a life cycle approach can really help in taking the right decision and in informing, based on science, the policy, the measures that need to be taken. If we go to the next slide, please. What needs to be always considered when I say there is no one single solution to single-use plastic product pollution is because geographic context is extremely important. And by that, I mean that we need to always consider the infrastructure that we have available in a specific country for waste management. The energy mix is very important. So if we have, for example, reusable energy-based mix, or rather is still fossil fuel-based, the sources and type of raw material is very important. If we have, for example, recycled content that comes into the product or not, and the recycling rate. Cultural context is another very important element that can very much impact the findings, basically, and the life cycle impacts of the various single-use product. For example, when we looked, and here we see the acceptability of reusable alternatives. So there are several social norms that are important, and this comes to mind, for example, when we look at menstrual products. In some countries, it's very difficult to socially accept, for example, the use of the cap. The user behavior, so how we wash, how we launder our reusable product, and the access to waste management. So then next slide. This is just to show you one of the tools we have developed as part of the meta-analysis, and this one is the example with nappies. So this matrix tried to map in a very visual and easy to understand way. On the left-hand side, you would have your consideration of geographical and technological context, so whether there is a no formal waste management and poor recycling support, all the way instead to the ideal scenario where there is advanced waste management and good policy support. And on the x-axis, we will find the differentiation between consumer that is eco or cost conscious and a consumer that is instead indifferent. So you will see that, for example, there are some clear preference marked in blue where reusable nappies are preferred, and I can hear the alarm. So I will conclude shortly, but I just want to share with the group basically that the pink, what we marked in pink, is when the single-use option is instead preferred based on the current knowledge that is available when we conducted this meta-analysis. And when there is the diagonal, basically it's very unclear based on the LCA studies that we analyzed whether there is a strong, so there is no real strong preference between the single-use option and the reusable option. So it's really a map, and this matrix is I think, useful as a map for countries and for people to kind of place themselves and see what is the currently most useful option and what we could improve in order to move to use more reusables. And with that, I believe, so just quickly before we take any question, and I'm happy to answer those, basically the key take-home message is really anyways to consume less and to try to reuse as much as we can. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Claudia. Very nice presentation. Information useful for the final user. I think we have a question from Sonia. No, sorry, from Eva. Have you done a similar mapping on single-use plastic cups?
For the caps, I believe, so we introduced the matrices not from the very beginning of all the product, but we have basically for, yes, for caps, we do have these available. So I believe somebody has pasted already in the chat the link to our resources on the website. So if you are able to access the CAPS report, actually you will be able to have the matrix as well for CAPS. We have it for caps, we have it for tableware, for nappies, and for menstrual product, this type of matrix.
Thank you very much.
Very nice. And Sonia has asked, are these studies also available in other UN languages? If not, is their translation foreseen? Policymakers in many developing countries, especially, would really welcome these publications in their own languages. I don't know if I have this.
Thank you, and I totally agree. It's a very good point. We have so we consolidated all the results for the single from the individual studies into a consolidated report, and the executive summary of that report is available in several languages, and so you can find that also on the same on our web on the Life Cycle Initiative page as well. So we have Spanish and French, and for the nappies report, we had a sponsor as well that helped us to translate the executive summary of that specific report also in Spanish and French. For the other individual meta studies, unfortunately, we didn't have resources for translating.
Very nice. We just have another comment from Devi. We reached the final minute. So thank you, Claudia. And I think now Llorenç will tell us what we're going to do now. I think we have a break now. Yes?
Indeed. Thank you so much, Tiago. Thanks, Claudia. I mean, this is running very smoothly. So thanks also, Tiago, for the moderation in the last presentations. I'm wondering also, Claudia, because I know that there have been videos produced. I'm not sure if we are finally able to share it now, but as we move into the break, and indeed we have, maybe let me just finish that we're going to have this 20 minutes break. So we'll be back at the hour. Well, except for those of you in India and Sri Lanka who work in a half-hour difference, but at the hour we will come back. Claudia, I think you wanted to show us a video, and we might actually leave the video on. It's a very short one, so if you want to see it while you're going on break, I think that's going to be interesting as well. So Claudia, over to you.
We can play. I will ask Angelique to please play and let run the one that we have available. It's not yet so it's a preview for the people of the General Assembly. It's not yet the one that will be published and circulated on YouTube and on our social media channel, but we are happy to share the content as we have it at the moment as preview for the General Assembly. Thank you.
Perfect, and here it comes. So enjoy. See you in a little bit. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Want to know how to make greener choices for the planet? Reducing how much we consume is the top priority. But what more could we do? Using a reusable product multiple times is more eco-friendly than using a new single-use product every day. The UN Environment Programme has recently confirmed that single-use products, regardless of their material, are the most problematic for the planet. So, the biggest step we can make as consumers is to choose to reuse.
So 8 o'clock for me, 13 for you. Hello again. It was a nice break. I had time enough to eat half of my breakfast, and I hope you have at least half of your lunch. So now it's my pleasure again. I'm a very lucky guy. For the third time, we will present you another dear colleague, Angelique Vermeer. Sorry for the pronouncing. One of our interns, of UNEP interns, with the Life Cycle Initiative. And she has been very capably supporting the e-learning module work. So, Angelique, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcel, for your introduction. Next slide, please. So the Lifecycle Initiative has produced several e-learning modules about lifecycle thinking and approaches from different perspectives and in different levels of depth. And all these e-learning modules are free and they draw on materials from the initiative. And we have produced 3 courses so far. The first one is the Introduction to Lifecycle Thinking course, and it's available in Arabic, English, French, Spanish, and Portuguese. Then we have the Lifecycle Thinking in Business course, which is available in English and Spanish. And then we have the Lifecycle Thinking in Policy Making, also available in English and Spanish. And all these e-learning modules are available through our website, learnlifecycle.com. Over the past year, many people have found these materials. Next slide, please. And there have been 2,832 registrations with a bit more than 1,000 people fully completing the course. The intro course has been the most popular one, and most people have registered for this course in English, and most people have completed it in Spanish. And overall, we've had the most registrations so far since the last General Assembly, since we began running these courses on the platform. And we are sure that the coming year will be even more successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Angelique. I don't know if we have questions, but we have the links for the e-learning courses
So
in the chat.
I have
Oh,
a
very
question.
nice.
What is the next step? I mean, what do you foresee to implement other LCA courses, or what's foreseen?
Please correct me if I'm wrong, Llorenç, Claudia. I believe at the moment we're not planning to develop another course. Different new languages may appear in the future, but right now we are not planning on doing so, right?
Yeah, thank you very much, Angelique. No, that was a good question. Indeed, there's nothing in the plan, but certainly to continue updating, perhaps curating the available courses, and if we can make them available in new languages with the collaboration of the community, that will be fantastic. And certainly, I mean nothing stops us if the opportunity or if the need appears for new types of courses, we will go there, but that's not in the plan at the moment. Thanks for the question, Olivia.
Yeah, we just yeah, we have 4 more minutes, so I can go ahead and someone will get some minutes extra. Thank you, Angelique. Thank you, Llorenç.
Thanks, Tiago. I think, in fact, it's perfect timing to go to the next section, which will be presented by Sonia Valdivia. So maybe, Sonia, if I can give you the floor to introduce yourself. Well, I mean, I think everybody knows you already from the World Resources Forum, but former member as well of the Secretariat of the initiative. So please, the floor is yours. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would be really very happy if I would know so many new practitioners that I am really very, very happy to see many present today. So I would like to briefly explain about this activity, the LCA Award 2020-2021. That is the last edition of the LCA Award. And please go to the next. This activity aims to enhance the regional capacities in applying life cycle thinking worldwide. It's focused on developing economies, on the emerging economies, and it's about also promoting local data generation, knowledge, of course, networking, and more applications. It's always important to highlight the great support that this activity received always from the tools and software data providers on LCA that you know, many of them probably, Econvent, Green Delta, IKE, from China, eFood Hamburg, New Earth, and PRE with the CIMA Pro, and the other softwares that you know, that you read in the screen. So thanks to them, not only for providing these tools, but also for coaching and helping, assisting in many cases when during the conduction of these studies. The next one, please. So we have seen an evolution since 2007 when the first version was kicked off, and now we saw that the growing comes from, I mean, in terms of tools that are being used, starting with ELCA, with the tools that relate to data, but also to softwares that help completing the studies. And then we moved more to organizational LCAs, and now we see an expansion on social LCA, but also now embracing the three areas, life cycle sustainability assessment. So I'm going to present in the next slide a bit a summary on the studies that are being conducted currently, please. So we have 11 projects developing in these different countries, and there is a range of areas that are covered, starting with textiles. There are several cases on textiles. Probably it's really a key sector in many countries. That's a clear answer. But also on waste management. This is very interesting, very relevant, of course. Then we have more isolated studies or more unique cases, like, for example, on e-bikes, eco-design, on LCA in the housing, for building, or lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. So we have these cases as well. You also see a concentration of cases in Latin America, and in Asia, a bit less in Africa. And we strongly promote, I mean, in all countries where we see an underrepresentation of data, of studies. So maybe for the next edition, you may feel encouraged to submit a proposal. We have to discuss about the next edition maybe one day, Llorenç. We are due soon. And this is what I will present in the next slide. Please. So as next steps, we plan to finalize this edition at the end of the year 2021, where we expect the reports from all these cases. Some of them are already available. Also, as in previous occasions, we would like to acknowledge the participation. I mean, completed studies, findings, relevant findings will be summarized in a communication, and will be also disseminated through the LCNet. And as said, we will recognize them in a public way. In the past, we provided certificates as possible. So with this, I think if there is any questions on any of the studies, well, happy to answer to them. I wanted to keep it very short so that we have time for the next presentations. Okay.
Excellent. Thank.
Next presentation. Ccarolina Scarinci.
I think the sound is coming very dim, Barbara.
Now is better?
Much better. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Well, I repeat it. I'm Barbara Civit from Argentina, and I will be introducing Ccarolina Scarinci. She's an independent consultant on sustainability. She's based in Chile and is part of the technical management group of GLAM. And well, she will be presenting it now. If you have questions, you can put them in the chat box, and then if we have time left, we read them and Ccarolina will answer it. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you very much for the introduction. Well, hello, everybody. Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, wherever you are. Next slide, please. I will be telling you a bit what GLAD is and what we've been doing this last year. So the important thing about GLAD here is that you can look for the data sets that you need for your studies or for whatever purpose. Here, there's a demo on how to use the website. You can search for a data set. You can filter out the results. You can see, for example, if you look for rice, that you have all these data providers that provide data sets related to rice production. You can narrow down your results, for example, India, and you will get a few results around there, 66 data sets. You can also narrow down results by, for example, modeling approach. You will get here attributional, and then you have some other results. So here you have data sets that are for rice production in India, and as you can see here, they come from different data providers. So for example, you have Ecoinvent, you have Sphera, so you can decide which one is useful for your purpose and go to dataset. You will be redirected to the provider website, and you can download here the dataset that you're interested in. Of course, registering if the So what is GLAD at the end of the day? GLAD, no, back. Thank you. Back, please. Thank you. So GLAD is a single interface where you can find all these LCI data sets all in a single place from many different providers. It is not a database in itself, so we do not store data sets in GLAD. GLAD is not a database in itself, but it consolidates different data sets from different data providers. It is kind of a catalog where you can find, look for the information of different data sets, decide whether that information is useful, and then you will be redirected to the website of the data provider. Next slide, please. At the moment, we have we have 15 data providers connected. You can see some of the logos at the back of the screen. These 15 data providers, next please, contribute to more than 90,000 LCA data sets, next, which represent more than 16,000 products and services. Next, please. So all this information in a single place, you can imagine that it provides a lot of benefits for the users, and not only for the users, because if you're a data provider and you connect to GLAD and your information is available here, then you have more visibility of your data. People can access them in an easier way, sorry. And from the user point of view, of course, we as LCA practitioners, it is easier to find information that you, in a different way, you will have to look for it in different websites, in different databases. And here you will find everything in the same place. You can compare, you can check the information of that data and decide if it is useful. You will be able to access more accurate data because you will have access to many different data providers that in some cases you wouldn't even know they existed. And of course, at the end of the day, it means less time in spent on studies, and of course, more cost efficient as well. Next slide, please. So GLAD is out there to put all this information together. Of course, we are advancing in different areas where we can make data more accessible, more compatible, more interoperable. And we want you to get involved. And there are many different ways in doing this. First of all, we would like you to use GLAD. So go to the website, check what is out there. You will find some things that are not working, so we would like to know about that. There is a pop-up survey on the website that you can give us your opinion there, what can be improved. But also we've been organizing some user focus groups. We've done one already last month, and we will be doing another one before the end of this year, hopefully. And this user focus group, what we want to know there is your user experience. What are the improvements that you would suggest to GLAD? We try to invite a small group of LCA practitioners to discuss how they would do a data search, and well, we'll discuss there how things can be improved. We are working on a new search function that will be available on the website soon. This will make the searching more easier. Then if you are a data provider, if you generate data, well, you can become a node and be one more of these 15 data providers that we have on GLAD now. There is a process to connect your database to GLAD. We are improving this process as well to make it smoother. And if you connect to GLAD, your data will be more visible for users. So we invite you to contact us if you want to connect your data. Then you can collaborate in kind. We have many different things going on where you can, if you're an expert, if you know about any of these topics, you're invited to participate. We have the nomenclature working group, which is what they've been working on this year is building a mapping file between the different nomenclature systems for elementary flow. And this is a way to improve on interoperability, as I was saying before. This is also one of the aims. So the idea is to make databases more interoperable. And also they are working on tools and guidelines to ensure that this mapping is maintained in the future. They are also collaborating with GLAM, that will be presented after me, the Global Life Cycle Impact Assessment Method. So there is also collaboration between different things that are going on. Also, there's the metadata working group that is where I've been helping in the last few months, and we've been collecting information from different users of GLAD. So on the one side, from the data providers to understand how the connecting process was and what metadata was useful for the. Sorry, I don't know if the beeping is for me. If I'm okay with the time, let me know if I'm exceeding my time. Because
no, Carolina, 1 minute left, and we don't have time for questions.
Marvelous. And the metadata was. We are now collecting information from different users to make metadata more useful for everybody. Also, there are open calls for IT developments. This year we held a hackathon where individuals developers participated. Remember that GLAD is an open access and open source, so also we have all our developments available in GitHub. And then finally, last but not least, you can always become a funding partner and help us develop this mandate that at the end of the day is trying to promote and make LCA and mainstream LCA among the community. So thank you very much. If you have questions, you can put it in the chat and I can answer them there.
Thank you, Carolina. I will register the questions and then send them to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Barbara, for the moderation and Carolina. And yes, indeed, Pity, but I see some questions popping in the chat, so please keep answering them by writing. But we must now follow and get to the next presentation. And I'm really glad. It's a pleasure and an honor to introduce Olivier Jolliet, but of course, most of you already know him. He's one of the founding fathers, I think I can say, of the Life Cycle Initiative. And we'll be now talking about the GLAM project that was already mentioned by Carolina on the creation of a global life cycle impact assessment method. So, Olivier, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Next slide. So the aim of the GLAM project is create a consensus-based global life cycle impact assessment method that people could use in a sense by default, and to enhance the comparison purpose between different studies there. On the timeline, we started in 2019. We are now 2 years in the project. We are really starting to develop the factors. The method are more or less set in most area, and our aim is to arrive mid-2023 with factors which could be recognized and perhaps sometime for end of 2022 for implementation. Next slide. So if I go to the first the cross-cutting issue, and we have here a different chair, and thanks to Alessandra, who has now retired as a chair, and Rodrigo Feita as welcome as a co-chair from this task. Next slide. When we look at the one activity here, recent activity has been to slightly revise our framework. I don't want, there are many things here, but one thing, if you press one enter more, is the place of ecosystem services, and it was set as a damage level, as an area of protection, but giving more thought, and we had that already at the Valencia workshop in 2018, some in that direction. We rather think it's an area of protection, grouping different impact category, and then which has impact on instrumental resource, the socioeconomic asset and the value, but has also impact on human health and ecosystem quality. So it's like the water, which group different impact category. Water could be water use, but and scarcity, but also impact on water. Same thing with ecosystem services, has multiple impact. Next slide. For the Human Health Task Force, we see that the main emphasis on climate change, fine particulate impact, human toxicity. And I think you've seen some progress with the project with USEtox there, with a near field exposure during the use phase, ionizing radiation, nutrition, and the water use here. Great progress also on really to have the worker exposure and impact is really important, because that's one of the main trade-off we have, that some production of some product can injure the worker, and we need to account that in our trade-off. The next slide. On the nutrition side, we had a very interesting workshop a month ago with top nutritionists, and that's the beauty of the Life Cycle Initiative, that we can attract these people like Walter Willett, who was the Dean of Nutrition at Harvard School of Public Health, or the other colleague here, who are mentioned, and we've been basically approving the framework first, and then discussing, I mean, limitation and potential of each part. Next slide. And basically, we're going to use, on the one hand, the approach we have developed on our end, the marginal approach on SMILE dietary changing. You might have seen in the news the 36 minutes of your life per hot dog, which had 120,000 likes on the CNN Instagram. So it really, sometimes LCA research goes through quite a bit. And also the work of colleague at ETH Zurich, Christy Walker and Steffi Helweg and John Matters, where we were looking more at the diet level. And we discussed that we need really in LCA not only to consider the negative impact, but also the benefits. And when we do that, we had some recommendation and guidelines, consider both impact and benefit, but we report them separately, and we report separately the subpopulation affected, because the one who benefits from a serving of veggies is not the same as we eventually suffer from the pesticide in that case. So we need to report that. Okay, so all this work is available, and you have a link here where you can download the factors, characterization factor, which are in fact in like DALI per gram sodium or minutes of life lost per gram sodium, knowing that we have 500,000 minutes in a year. Next slide. The Ecosystem Quality Task Force is progressing in a great way in each of the category you have here. The vulnerability is really interesting. Next slide. And we have really measured value or observed value of global extension probability at basically a few kilometer grid worldwide at the local level. And this is on marine, terrestrial, and freshwater on the right. And it touched a whole series of different corals, marine, seagrasses, amphibians, bird, mammal, reptiles, so different species and trophic level here. And this will be then linked, in fact, to the land use, to the acidification, to the ecotoxicity in a consistent way to arrive to not anymore, I would say, fixed factor. We also have average factor, but factor which can be grouped worldwide. Next slide. For natural resources, it's progressing well on the ecosystem services. These are 6 categories which are now getting operationalized under the direction of Tim Grant and under the leadership of Masaru Motoshita. Next slide. We are revising and working on the framing of dissipation-based framework for especially mineral resources, where we look not only at what is extracted, but where it's dissipated at which moment on the life cycle chain. We still take a bit of time to be operationalized in that case. I think I'm at the end here. Okay. Any question?
Brilliant.
Or?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Olivier. Well, I think, yeah, there is time probably for 1 or 2 questions. I see one from Marzia in the chat. So saying that it would be important to assess the social impact of a veggie diet as well. We are moving to use soya and other materials which are not produced, well, in Europe in this case, but yeah, so that we're probably shifting on that. So any comment on this, Olivier?
If you like, the role of the impact assessment is on the environmental side, so that's not really the role. Indeed, on the food assessment, I mean, in the paper we were presenting, we were calculating the environmental, 18 environmental, and the nutritional impact for about 5,000 food items. Adding the social impact on that would be great. I mean, so if you're we could talk about potential collaboration, but that's outside of GLAM, I would say, as such.
That's a good one, Olivier. I would add also, Marzia, that in fact we are eating the soya as well in Europe. It's just that maybe it's fed on the cows that we are eating here. So it's interesting that certainly the flows will change, and that's something that certainly will have social implications. I think the transition will be having important implications on jobs and on many other things. So that's certainly something to consider from a sustainability point of view. I don't see other questions in the chat.
I can just add that also this work on nutrition that we have been carrying out in here has been an input. There has been an FAO working group for recommendation of bringing nutrition and environmental impact together. Which is just concluding now at the end of next month, which has been using some of our results in GLAM.
Okay. Excellent. Thanks, Olivier. And I see actually another comment from Sonia, but that is actually a fantastic segue to the next part of the presentation, because Sonia says that she sees potential synergies on health aspects with the social LCA working group of the Life Cycle Initiative, and the social subcategory of impact is about animal welfare. So that's probably a great introduction for Sonia, who will be presenting, introducing Marzia on the social LCA guidelines. So Sonia, over to you, please.
Yes, thank you. Yes, it's my pleasure to introduce Professor Marzia Traverso from Aachen University in Germany, who is coordinating the social LCA working group of the Life Cycle Initiative. Marzia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sonia. Yes, thank you. Actually, I coordinate together with you and other people. Maybe I will give you not really on the update is on more on the second phase of this project that's focused on the pilot project. The next slide. The next, this slide, as you know, there's a part of the project that was started already in 2017, was already under the UNEP in 2018. And we were updated by last December, the guidelines. So we have now the UNEP 2020 guidelines, and now we are proceeding actually with the update of methodological sheets and with the pilots. That is maybe the second part of the project. Next. Yeah, that is what we've been done before until last December. So that's, I'm co-chairing together with Ccarolina Benoit, Matthias Fink-Biner, and of course all the steering committee, includes Sonia Valdivia. And we, you know that we reached actually already what is there. So the main object is to realize or to carry out a new guidelines that include all the development, and also with a more that includes SOLCA as well, social organizational LCA, and this somehow expand the audience, because it guide also people that are not necessarily LCA expert in the world of social LCA, and then automatically also consequently in the LCA world. Next slide. As you know, also the first version of UNEP Guidelines 2009 has a further complementary document that is the methodological sheets that was published, the first version 2013, and now is under revision. We are almost ready. Because we have to update all the references, also to make a reference to the Sustainable Development Goals, and we also create new subcategories, like for example, ethical treatment animals. Was mentioned before from Sonia. They were not there before, so we are developing the ones that are in bold are the new one, completely new, developed in this phase of the project. So we are in total 40 impact subcategories that will be detailedly described in the next methodological sheets 2021. Next slide. The second other part of the second phase of the project is the finalization of the pilot project. We start with a call for pilots in 2019, and we are actually all of the 8 out of 9 pilots report have been already delivered to us, to the group of the they are revising with steering committee and INAB group. Actually only one is missing, that it's the ones on product social metrics roundtable, that we are not sure that we'll get it. But anyway, the rest is there, and we are finalizing last point. We're going to make it together as a further document or deliverable in December 2021. Maybe next, just a short detail. That's all of them are a mix of different sector. You apply the UNEP 2020 in different sector, from automotive sector to chicken poultry, for example, in different area. And actually, in the slide before, there were a bit of map, sorry. But you see it, you have like Indonesia, you have Cuenca, so you have also Italy, Germany. So we try to catch US. And we have a different applications, S-LCA and social life cycle assessment, social organizational LCA or social life cycle assessment of product. We have different, I mean, we can have small, medium enterprises, and also big company like a BMW or Tata Steel, and also very small farmer like for chicken poultry. Next, what is the next that we are going to do? So we are finalizing both documents. So one is the methodological sheet and the pilot project, the pilot report. The idea is to launch them in next December, so in 2021. We are translating, it's a group of scientists from Syriac, from Pescara University. We are translating the UNEP guidelines into language, Dutch, French, and Italian. So that will be also launched in December. And we are also, that's good news, I'm a co-convener, a project leader of the revision of the development of the ISO 40075 that with a 3-year project on social life cycle assessment, and we are going to organize training and further webinar in different languages. We already started actually in Italian, in German, in French, in Spanish. So we are continuing to do that to spread, the social LCA. Next, they are very short. There are two mainly advertisements. One is the 7th December will be the launch of all these documents that I already say. So methodological sheet, pilot report, and translation. And this is funded by the Minister of Belgium. Thank you to the partner and to support from Canada. So please save the date, and they will come in short time the official invitation. And second advertisement is out, the call for session, and I think you already received, most of you, but we will send again an email for the 8th International Social LCA Conference that will be organized by us, by my department, by an institute in Aachen, next year, 5th to 8th September. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Marzia. I think it was very comprehensive in such a short period of time. So very good. Thank you. Is there any questions? I think maybe, okay. Just on the launch in December, can you please confirm if this can be attended also online?
Yes, actually we are, you can register in present and online. So that for sure is that, thank you, Sonia, I forgot to say, is a hybrid event to allow as many as possible people to join this conference. Actually, also the conference in Aachen will be hybrid version. So we'll learn, I hope that at least the European members are there in present. But we will give the opportunity to everyone to not necessarily fly to participate for online.
Thanks. There is no other question. Yes, someone raised a hand. Please, could you speak up? Because I don't manage to see your name in the screen. Oh no, someone raised a hand. Okay, Llorenç, if there is no questions, maybe we could go to the next presentation.
Yes, thank you so much, Marzia and Sonia. And yes, I see Alessandra is already ready to introduce our next speaker. So Alessandra, please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Llorenç. Thank you, speakers so far. Very interesting, I would say, assembly rich of a lot of content. It's my pleasure now to introduce Ian Vázquez Rowe. I see you, Ian. Ian is an associate professor from University in Peru, and we will hear about MariLCA, which is a really interesting project about the integration of potential environmental impacts of MariLCA into LCA. Please, Ian, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Alessandra. Thank you, Llorenç. Good morning with everybody. So, well, we are about to jump into the 4th year of the MariLCA project, in which we've focused mainly on developing life cycle impact assessment tools to assess marine plastic litter in the world oceans. No? So could you please jump a couple of slides? Yeah, one more. So, well, just for, no, the previous one, please. Yeah, that was fine. So, as you can see, well, the project has its technical advisory committee and its administrative committee, which the Life Cycle Initiative and S-LCA provide the support. But the main working group is the scientific committee. No? So, we have a group of about 20 scientists that meet on a regular basis to coordinate different actions in order to be able to advance in a coordinated and joint manner and provide results. No? Next slide, please. Yeah, next one. Yeah. So, well, phase number 1, which was supposed to finalize last year, is already concluded. We finally managed to get published in Ecological Indicators our framework paper about 5 or 6 months ago. And this has been presented at different conferences and webinars in different parts of the world in the past 18 months. So, well, it's open access, so everybody's free to access the paper. It provides a very nice review on different aspects that must be taken into account in order for us to jump into this challenge to include marine litter impacts in life cycle impact assessment. So you're welcome to read it, and it's definitely going to be one of the pillars of the research that is to come in the next few years. Next slide, please. Yeah, so here we can see our methodological framework, and I think this slide has moved slightly. There was a link to the webinar that we organized, in which you can see a wide explanation of this figure, but to a certain extent here what we can see is how the different inventory level aspects of plastic polymers entering the marine environment will generate, well, the cause effect chain that we all know into fate, exposure effect, etc., in order to be able to develop a first effect and exposure fate and effect factors, and finally characterization factors. No? So this is well explained also in the open access paper that I mentioned earlier, and you're welcome also to jump into our web page to see further analysis on this. Next slide, please. So now we are completely into phase 2. So the scientific committee has the main role in this phase. We have monthly meetings in which we meet, and as I mentioned earlier, we have all these presentations of different atomized projects that are ongoing throughout the world. Perhaps this can be seen in the next slide, I think. Please, if we could, yeah, here we are. No? So this is like a brief explanation of the previous figure. A bit more synthetic, but you can see how different people and different institutions are working on very specific aspects in terms of exposure, fate, effect, areas of protection, etc. No? So the idea is for us to work coordinated and to fill in the gaps. No? Now, as you can see, not much is being doing currently in terms of human health and human toxicity linked to nano, micro, macroplastics. So obviously, we are an open scientific group. So if anybody is interested in joining in, they're more than welcome. What we require is that people should have some sort of active project linked to marine litter or microplastics or something related, and that they're willing to jump into this shared community in which we discuss different topics. Next slide, please. So this is the first research article that has been published. The first one that I mentioned earlier is more of a critical analysis review. And in this paper published by our colleagues at CIREG in Montreal, they focused on developing effect factors to quantify the physical impact on biota due to micro and nanoplastics. So this is already available in the Journal of Industrial Ecology, but we have more manuscripts in the oven. There's about 2 or 3 manuscripts currently submitted, and probably another couple that should be coming soon in the next few weeks. And some of them are purely methodological, advancing different life cycle impact assessment aspects. Others include case studies which develop this to certain sectors or specific products. Next slide, please. Dissemination activities in the short run. So yesterday, Anne-Marie, my co-chair at MariLCA, presented the main outcomes of MariLCA at the S-LCA conference in the States. We've also submitted a discussion forum proposal for the Swiss LCA discussion forums that hopefully, if it's approved, will be held in November next year. And also at Lima, Peru, we are going to host the LCA Foods 2022 conference. It's going to be hybrid. So those who want to come in person are more than welcome. And we are going to have a full day on the oceans, on fisheries, etc. And we're also planning on having a special session on how plastic litter can be linked to food. So if you have any contributions that you would like to send to this special session, you're more than welcome to do so. Abstract launching will be on Saturday, on the 25th of September. Next slide, please. Yeah, well, this is the final stage, phase 3, in which we already undergoing certain things. We already part of some of the task forces of GLAM, and we are looking towards having a certain integration with GLAM, and that's in the future. Well, we can have a clear and coordinated understanding of how marine plastics fit in within the GLAM framework. And I think that's all I had to say. I don't know if I think the last slide is just with our emails. If you want to contact us, either to join the scientific committee or for any other question you may have. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Ian, also for being time and very effective. I don't see so far questions, but please keep writing also later on, and we will back at you. I have just a small question for you. I was wondering whether there are additional webinars or trainings planned for external stakeholders for getting more into the model.
Not at the moment, but we will be meeting in the next few weeks, and we'll be planning like all the dissemination activities for next year. No? So in one of the slides you could see some of the activities, but we need to work on that. No, yeah, and towards the end of the year you'll have more information on that through our webpage or also through other types of communications.
Thanks a lot. I see there is no further questions, but please just whenever something comes into mind, just to write them down, and we will forward all the requests to Ian. Thanks a lot again, Ian.
Thank you. Goodbye.
And thank you very much, Alessandra. I'll just yes, I think that was good timing. So we have maybe one more minute for Sonia, who will be coming in next to talk about the latest position paper of the Life Cycle Initiative about life cycle sustainability assessment. So Sonia, the floor is back to you.
Yes, thank you, Llorenç. I promise that's my last intervention. I have to move. It was really a pleasure in attending this very good, very well organized assembly, and all the news are so amazing. So thanks for this excellent event. And I'm very pleased to introduce the 10 Life Cycle Sustainability Assessment Principles. That is a position paper of the Life Cycle Initiative. This was recently, please the next one, this was recently published in the Journal of Life Cycle Assessment, actually in August. And as you can see, well, we had a very honor that we had such a good composition of members authoring this position paper. You may recognize some names. Some are present in this call. Marzia, Alessandra, and others. Maybe I didn't see the full list recently, so please, could you make a click? Thank you. This is open access, so you can download it. And we are very happy that we are receiving a very good feedback from other practitioners, also from newcomers, as we call in our community, that are getting to the sustainability thinking. So that is very encouraging. So please, the next one. And where do we come from? We have been working on LCA, some of you for maybe much longer. We mentioned Oliver as the father of the Life Cycle Initiative and LCA. And social LCA started in 2009, so we see that we have already some progress on this, but still the levels of maturity of the different tools developed towards sustainability are not even. So we still see that environmental LCA compared to social LCA is more advanced, also regarding the application. And also compared to life cycle costing, which, by the way, is a term, is a method, is a tool that we know, but there is not so much published. It doesn't mean that it's not used by companies and organizations. So that's why it is not considered as a non-mature technique, as you see in the graphic, but also on data availability. We acknowledge that in social LCA we still need some way to go, because we need local data, we need more studies for sectors, which is not available yet from the social LCA perspective, which is much less compared to the environmental LCA data. You have several well-known databases that have thousands of data sets. So we envision going in that direction, for example, on social LCA. So the next one, please. And coming from the challenges that we acknowledge, that we recognize, identified from research done, from the literature identified, there is, I would like to highlight a few of them. In most studies, we identify that they are not complete, even though they are meant to be sustainability assessments, LCSA assessments. They, for example, missed one of the pillars, even two of the pillars to be addressed, even social LCA. Sometimes there are environmental LCA studies that are called sustainability assessments. So this is one finding, one of the main ones. Also, not all LCSA studies identified are fully aligned with ISO 14040 and the phases that need to be considered, goal, the scope, etc. And the interpretation part is lacking in most of the studies. So there is you don't find a reflection on the results that are emerging from the application of the different techniques. And this is very important when doing an LCSA. And then obviously you don't understand the trade-offs, or they are not highlighted. Finally, there is unclear criteria for weighting, because at the end of the day, you want to have meaningful and useful results, which means that you would be able to make decisions. But this is not possible if you don't set clear criteria for reading, for weighting and then reading the results. Based on that, the 10 principles that are presented here need to align with ISO 14040. I think I have a minute. The need to consider stakeholder perspectives. This is a learning from social LCA. This is a reality check in order to understand stakeholders' concerns. Product utility, meaning understanding the perception of the product beyond what is the technical functionality. This is a definition that you can also find from social LCA. Completeness, I already mentioned that, having the 3 pillars addressed. The materiality of system boundaries, meaning we need to consider all unit processes that are relevant within the scope. Areas of protection and impact pathways need to be understood because, okay, we have 3 techniques, but at the end of the day, we need to see the forest and not just one or single trees. And these are the main principles, finally on the interpretation and communication, because we also have positive impacts, which is kind of new in LCSA, in environmental LCA that needs to be considered also in LCSA. This is in a nutshell about the 10 principles. I invite you to access them in the web, which is freely available. Thank you. I think you can just read that we are working on a mapping of current LCSA studies and see the level of progress. So just stay in touch with us if you are interested in learning more.
Thank you so much, Sonia, for that great overview. And stay in touch and stay tuned is also a message for the coming break. We're going to have our second and last break of today with this session. We now completed the overview of what has happened in the past year and a bit of an outlook of what's coming in the coming months. But please stay tuned, because after the break, we're going to have the session that is going to require much more of your participation, as we will be describing well, what we're planning for the strategy exercise, the consideration, the drafting of the new strategy. And we also have a very exciting announcement to make at the end. So I hope that will hook you on your screens. Well, you can take a break now, obviously, but we have a special announcement for all of you at the end of the General Assembly. So please stay tuned. Come back at 1/4 which will be 1/4 in India and Sri Lanka, I think. So please, as I said, we'll see you back in 20 minutes. Thank you. We're gonna now move to the next session, as mentioned, and we'll be focusing on the life cycle initiative strategy more broadly at a higher level. So first, I'll be sharing a bit the results of the current ongoing strategy of the life cycle initiative. As you may remember, in 2016, 2017, we did quite a significant revamp of the life cycle initiative strategy, which brought us to the areas of work that we have been seeing today. But most importantly, this is just an introduction to the next session that will be led by our new colleague, Bina Emanvel, who is working with us in the coming months to help us reshape the strategy of the life cycle initiative. But let us just go into the substance. So maybe if we can move to the next slide. These set of slides are mainly to remind you, or to remind everybody of what the current strategy looks like. As you know, the vision of the life cycle initiative has been, actually for most of its existence, that with life cycle thinking, decisions can lead us faster and more efficiently towards sustainable development and sustainable consumption and production. This is because we focus the attention to those key drivers, the hotspots that drive most of the impact, and also because with the holistic perspective of life cycle thinking, we can address potential trade-offs between different impact categories before they actually occur, so we can be more efficient at making the decisions. And with this aim to help inform better the decisions and policies that can take us to the 2030 agenda, we have organized our work through these 3 areas of technical and policy advice, capacity development, and life cycle knowledge, which are the areas that we received or that we've been seeing in the last few hours. So if we move to the next slide, I just wanted to provide a quick recap of where we are in terms of this strategy. And in the area of technical and policy advice, we set ourselves some quantitative targets and goals for 2022, which is when the current strategy finishes, in fact, early 2022. So we should be hitting all these targets by the end of the year. And here we see that we said that we would be mainstreaming life cycle thinking into global areas of decision and policy making. And in this one, we have hit this. We said that we would be intervening in at least 4 of these global areas, and we consider the areas of plastics, the chemicals, and we saw what we're doing with the SAICM in the first presentation by Peter Fantke. We've also been informing tourism sector, and we've been helping drive some roadmaps in specific countries, as well as all the work we're doing through the SCP HAT in driving national SCP action plans, nationally determined contributions, etc. The area of plastics, also Sheila in her opening remarks was reminding us that the Life Cycle Initiative has been recently informing quite a lot of processes and debates with member states, for instance, on the single-use plastic products and the information with life cycle assessment studies that Claudia prepared. But also, as Sheila mentioned, the recent ministerial conference on plastic litter and marine litter, and plastic pollution requested specifically from the Life Cycle Initiative to explain to the member states what a life cycle approach to plastics pollution looks like. And actually, maybe we'll share later as well the link of all the work that we've been doing in this area. But this area of plastics, certainly, I think we're doing a very good job in providing the information or facilitating the information that life cycle assessment can bring. We also discussed about showing positive impacts at the level of policies and showing how the application of this life cycle thinking is really bringing the better discussions, better solutions at the area of policies in countries. And here again, we've hit the target of influencing at least 15 countries. And where we have seen less fast progress is actually at the area of influencing decisions with private sector, with companies. Although here we're also very comfortable and confident that with the ongoing projects and ongoing road testing of the projects on social LCA guidelines and the SDG project that Rosan presented before and Marzia presented for the social LCA, we're confident that with this road testing, we will have many more companies where we can say that we've actually helped to positively influence their decisions. So moving to the next slide, in the area of capacity development, here, actually, I should have updated the number because I think the number of people who have now completed at least 80%, which is the 80% of the e-modules. This 80% is the mark where we say that they've taken up most of the content of the e-modules. So I think we've already achieved this target of 2,500 people that were trained, not just through the e-modules, but also through direct trainings that we've been leading from the Life Cycle Initiative. And then we've also been publishing success stories that are very useful in order to share and to help develop the capacities on understanding how life cycle thinking is informing decisions and policies. So we have one more of these success stories to go to be published, so we can then use that and consider this indicator achieved. And finally, last but not least, in the next slide, we will see the area of life cycle knowledge, where actually we've overachieved in all the indicators. In terms of sharing and facilitating the access to LCA data through the Global LCA Data Access Network, GLAD, I guess we were probably a bit coy, a bit too shy in setting our indicators, our targets, but we were hoping to connect at least 8 databases. We've now achieved actually 15. Again, Ccarolina mentioned that 15 earlier, and I know that I need to be finishing the time here. But then totally in the area of in the number of data sets that are connected, we totally blasted that number. I mean, again, that was really beyond our expectations, and we have close to 100,000 data sets connected now in GLAD. We hope to get there. Perhaps we will get there before the end of the year. That will be quite fascinating. And then in terms of impact assessment indicators, both in the area of environmental impact assessment, but also in social impact assessment, we have been driving quite a lot of consensus, as we heard from Olivier in the area of environmental impact. I think somebody needs to mute their microphone. So colleagues, if you can locate the source, that will be useful. And then Marzia also told us about the indicators on social LCA, where we've also been driving this consensus. So just one last slide before I hand it over to the future-looking strategy. Just some concluding remarks that, as you can see, we're mostly on target to achieve what we planned to achieve in the beginning of this strategy. Obviously, the question is, well, did we aim high enough? Maybe we should have been a bit more strict or a bit more ambitious, and we might also have achieved that. It's always a fair question. I think we can say that we are definitely enhancing the impact of the Life Cycle Initiative in influencing the progress towards the 2030 agenda. That was one of the key novelties. It was not totally new that the Life Cycle Initiative would be pushing for the application of life cycle thinking, but perhaps there had been much more of a focus on the enabling conditions or life cycle thinking in terms of knowledge and capacity. And we've made a very active effort towards really bringing life cycle thinking and life cycle tools to those areas that can apply them. And these we have really seen that there is a good uptake. Could we have more? Yes, absolutely. And I think what we can do now is to really reflect on the strengths that we've seen of the Life Cycle Initiative and then building on these strengths. And this is perhaps more important in the area of partnerships and achieving things through others. So with this, well, my time is over, but in any case, I think it's important then to move to the next section. And I see that Bina has already connected her camera. So I'm welcoming Bina Emanvel, who joined the team as a consultant, as a strategy consultant, to accompany us in the next months, in the next few months, to help us reshape the new strategy of the Life Cycle Initiative between 2022 and 2027. So that's going to be kind of the last period before we have the end of the road to get to the 2030 agenda goals. So we have a lot to do. And I will leave you now with Bina to lead us in an interactive session to think of the future strategy of the initiative. Bina, all to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Llorenç. And it's a pleasure to be here. Very nice to meet all of you. I consider myself very lucky that I started last week. So I already had some initial induction with the team and the opportunity, of course, to join all of you today. And the reason is, as Llorenç mentioned, today's session is an interactive one, which means that I will start off maybe with a background on what the process for the strategy development is going to look like, what the timeline is like. But predominantly, today's meeting is to hear from you and get to know from you what your initial thoughts are. This is really our first consultation with the membership. We will follow up this meeting with a questionnaire, and the details of that I will speak about shortly. So if we can move to the next slide, Rowena, for the process, please. Thank you. So for the next 5-year strategy, just to give you an idea of what the process will look like, what we are setting out to identify and derive as part of a logical, as an opportunistic, as as an ambitious strategy for the initiative over the next 5 years. We of course want to start with analyzing and defining the context, the problem, challenges, opportunities. A lot of this work has no doubt already been done, has been set as a foundation with your current strategy and with the product that is in progress. But what we really want to align as part of this new strategy is to look at what additional challenges and what additional opportunities are out there that we probably need to pay more attention to or streamline our actions towards. So it's a bit more of a streamlined approach to development process for this strategy, wherein, if you look at step 2, we are trying to identify what the priority solutions and the impact areas for the LCI should look like over the next few years. What would be the objectives if we take the foundation of the current strategy? How can we build on it to enhance the impact, to magnify the impact, and reach areas that are, ranging from low-hanging fruit that have not necessarily been fully realized for their potential, and harder to reach interventions that LCI, as its very, very unique position, can leverage its power to leverage and make more impact in. We really want to understand a little bit more about our key stakeholders and target audiences. in the current strategy, in the work of LCI, it's been quite broad because as many of you know, and as Llorenç also mentioned to me a few days ago, the sheer enormity of the problem, it makes it important that we try to reach out to as many people as possible. At the same time, the scale of what we have as a solution in terms of its resourcing, in terms of its size, in terms of its footprint at the moment, it's not necessarily fully aligned. So if we are going to align it, we will need to expand the size of the solution, and we will need to make it a lot more bespoke to the kind of priorities we map through the strategy development process. So that's what we're trying to do by mapping out the targets and the stakeholders. Steps 4 and 5, we want to find out, in this whole universe of problem and solution, where exactly can the life cycle initiative fit in its most effective roles? Because of course there are lots of solutions, of course there are lots of things to be done, but what is the specific, unique, special role for the life cycle initiative that we can focus on over the next few years? And then once we identify what these roles are, we want to identify the best strategies to increase the impact over the next few years. So in a nutshell, as is presented in the next slide. Okay, so here, in a nutshell, all of that process boils down to these 3 things. One is identifying the most important impact areas or solutions. These could be, the outcomes, the outputs, and so on and so forth. We want to look at the stakeholders and roles and influences, because of course, a lot of the work that the LCI does is not directly making an impact, it's making an impact to specific stakeholders, whether sector or other stakeholders and actors in the universe, and then looking at LCI's roles, which is not to say that LCI is not directly making an impact. Maybe there are certain areas. So we try and map those interlinks and interconnections as well. What the work plan looks like, or what the timeline for this entire thing would be in the next slide. So there's a lot of information here, and I'm sure you'll get a copy of this at some point. So I wouldn't go through this in detail, but just to say that this process started last week with desk review and initial discussions and so on. And the next step, which is really the most important part of the strategy development exercise, are the consultations. So we're using a whole gamut of methodologies and different kinds of stakeholders, so group discussions, questionnaire, one-on-one, and so on and so forth, and also some analytical tools such as problem solution tree, which the Secretariat has done a great job already developing one, mapping stakeholders, doing a power analysis of the key stakeholders, and evaluation of our current status, and so on. So today really kicks off the consultation process, talking to all of you and following up this conversation with a questionnaire. The idea is to then go to the steering committee for streamlining the inputs, then interviewing a range of stakeholders. There's a bunch that's mentioned here: partners, donors, civil society organizations, staff, and so on and so forth. So that we are planning to plan over the next 1 month. If there are, any stakeholders that are missing, please feel free to put it in the chat box and let us know if there's a stakeholder that we really should be talking to enhance our next strategy. Eventually, there will be a high-level evaluation, presentation of findings, and really synthesis of those findings to make recommendations for what the next strategy could ideally focus on. There will be a chance for key stakeholders to input into this process and look at the draft strategies before it's signed off by the steering committee and the others by the end of this year. So hopefully by the end of this year, there will be some semblance of what the next strategy could look like, and then it can go through that internal process. So this is just where my part is, and then moving on to the next slide. Okay, so just to clarify why today's meeting is very important, besides the fact that it's a kickoff discussion, it's a kickoff consultation, we're really hoping to set the context for the strategy development process, and which is why your participation is incredibly important. Whether it's through the Mentimeter, there'll be 2 Mentimeter questions that'll be followed by this slide. And also your participation in the chat box. So please, please be as detailed and and please be as interested and participative as you want in this conversation, because everything that you say today and in the questionnaire that follows will directly and shape the strategy development process and the strategy itself. We want to know your opinions and views on the fundamental vision and mission of the Lifecycle Initiative. We will ask very simple questions just to gauge what the mood is like on the performance, on the assessment of opportunity for the future, and so on. And finally, there will be an opportunity for you to tell us what your expectations from the next strategy for the Lifecycle Initiative is like. Quick reminder that we will send you the membership questionnaire tomorrow, and then excuse me, and then it would be we would be very grateful if you could respond to that questionnaire by the 4th of October, because then on the 5th we will synthesize the results and streamline ahead of the next steering committee meeting. So very grateful for your participation over the next week in this process. Now I think we can move on to the first Menti question in the next slide. So, just as a quick reminder what the Lifecycle Initiative mission is, we're clarifying that it's a public-private multi-stakeholder partnership, which is fostering progress towards the sustainable development. And this we are planning to do, this we are attempting to do over taking 2 courses of action. One is advancing the understanding of life cycle thinking by private and public decision makers, right? And also, on the contrary, understanding of the decision-making process by life cycle experts in order to improve decisions that need assessing and comparing products, technologies, lifestyles, economy-wide choices, and so on. And the second course of action is to build consensus on and facilitate access to environmental, social, economic life cycle knowledge. So a lot of focus on the substance of things and not necessarily on the engagement, which is the first one really. So the first Menti question, if you could go to menti.com and use this code to access it, the first question really pertains to your assessment, your honest, expert assessment as a member of how things have been in the past 5 years. I mean, we're not looking at the entire history, but the past 5 years in terms of these 2 streams of action. If you could go there and cast your vote, we'll give it a few minutes. We'll give it a few minutes, and those who have already cast their vote, it would be great for you to let us know in the chat box as to why you made the choice that you made in terms of what has worked better. So I see right now the second one, building consensus, is scoring higher, but maybe that changes in a few minutes. But if you have chosen one or the other, if you can put in the chat box why you think that has been a more successful area for the Lifecycle Initiative in the past 5 years. Yes, so the Menti link is thank you, Tess. Tess has posted into the chat box. So if you're having trouble accessing the code and on the website, then please, you may just click through that link and then you'll be directed to that page. It's interesting that we started initially with more votes for building consensus on the substantive knowledge part of things, but now I see that the engagement side finds more support in terms of assessment of success. And of course, this is a very simplistic question, and I'm sure this is a lot more complex, but keen to know why colleagues that chose one or the other are supportive of that area.
Yes, Bina, just sorry to interrupt. I think we're having a technical problem with the chat. So we're trying to resolve this, but at the moment, I don't think anybody is able to post things in the chat. So unfortunately, we will not be getting these messages, but at least we have the Menti. And in the meantime, we will be trying to resolve this issue. Apologies for that.
Okay. Okay, no problem at all. So maybe we wait a couple of more minutes while everyone has had a chance to vote in. And meanwhile, just wondering if anyone from the Secretariat has any comments on this question or your assessment of what has been more successful.
I'm always happy to provide comments if that was a call for me, but of course others can chip in. And I would say also that perhaps if other participants want to chip in, please raise your hand. And I think this function is still working. But yes, I find it very interesting, and I think it's quite relevant to see that this first area that was probably, as I mentioned before, the area where we have been perhaps putting more new effort in the last 5 years. It's interesting to see that actually, well, a slight majority of the participants or of those who voted consider that this is the area where the initiative has had more success, more impact in the past 5 years. Whereas perhaps the area of driving consensus and on methodologies and data, that's perhaps the area that has been, well, we have definitely seen a lot of successes and impact in the last 5 years, but yeah, maybe this is kind of more the bread and butter of the initiative, and maybe that didn't come across so significantly. But that's just my take on these votes, and I don't know. I mean, maybe others want to comment as well.
Thank you, Llorenç. Yes, so if anyone has any comments, please raise your hand, and then you will have the opportunity to share your views. Apologies, the chat isn't working, but hopefully that will be resolved soon. Okay, I don't see any hands. Rowena, Tess, do you see any hands?
No, I think there's no hands up.
Okay.
So maybe we can move to the next one.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you for your for voting on this. It's very interesting to see, that they're not very far apart, 12 and 16, and it's interesting that advancing the life cycle thinking by experts. It's a bit in the lead. Would love to clarify that a little bit through the questionnaire that will follow. Okay, I think we can move on to the next question then. In the next slide.
Sorry, just trying to find the right one.
Sure. Okay, thank you for that. So now we have done a very, very quick, simplistic assessment of the past 5 years. For the next slide, we would love for you to think a little bit about the most effective and efficient impact that the Life Cycle Initiative can have in the world in the next 5 years. We spoke briefly in the beginning of my presentation about really honing in on the most powerful impact areas that the Life Cycle Initiative could intervene in, could influence, could participate in to increase its impact, which also means that amongst the entire gamut of opportunities and potential and solutions, if we were to really streamline and look at opportunities that can really magnify and exponentially increase really the impact, what would that be? So if you could go to Menti again, please, and use this code, and promise this is the last Menti link that you will have to use. We will move back to the chat box later if possible. There are 3 options there for the question of if the life cycle initiative could enable one big impact in the world in the next 5 years, what would that be? There are 3 options here. Maybe there are more. If you think that these 3 options do not capture the other one big impact area for the life cycle initiative, please do put that in the chat box. Yes, it is working now. Or just raise your hand, and I think we can make sure that you have the opportunity to speak. Okay, any thoughts on whether these options are adequate, or are they missing out on some element that really should be included? You can put your comments in the chat box.
Yeah, I think the chat box is still, now it seems to be working for some, but not for everybody, which is really strange. But it's quite interesting, really, to see the results. And it seems, if I get it right, because I only see it in my mobile now, but I see that the left is the actions by the governments, right? So yeah, I mean it's interesting. I mean both governments and businesses seem to be getting quite a lot of attention. But in any case, it seems that yeah, both. I mean certainly the influencing the decisions, the policies. So going beyond really getting life cycle thinking and life cycle application to the users, way beyond the life cycle community, seems to be the key focus. But again, I think it would be great to hear from others. So if you want to raise your hand, or if you cannot, just chip in. I mean, unmute yourselves and comment. That would be very useful.
Yes, that would be great. Thank you, Llorenç. Anyone has any comments? I see some comments in the chat box now. A line between government.
If I may have a comment here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, working in. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Working in the field of life cycle assessment and EPD and sustainability arena, I find that aligning between government and private sector is an area that if you have a link to or an approach for will facilitate a lot the spreading of awareness raising and the adopting of life cycle assessment studies and analysis. And this is an area that we need to focus on during the next 3 to 5 years. Working on the ground, private sector may want to do this, but he always looks for what are the regulations and what are the compliance in that area. So if we can have an initiative and support from the government to the companies that would like to work in the field of life cycle assessment and support the initiative, this will have a greater impact on the speed of the process in the field.
Yes, thank you very much for that. I think it also reflects this need for linking government support with business ambitions, right? And you know, making sure that government policies and national policies and whether it's local policies are enabling that sort of an environment. There's the enabling environment. There's also the standardization and compliance environment. Any views on whether compliance versus enabling kind of policies seem to work better at the national level?
Okay, my point of view in this area is that for the business sector in the developing countries, and let me speak for my experience here in the field, we are a sustainability consulting firm, and we have been dealing with a lot of clients and on a wide landscape. Unfortunately, most of private sector would do the move or take the move if and only if it is a regulatory and in accordance with the compliance and for rules and regulations. Quite few that will do it voluntarily for their own benefit because they don't see how the life cycle assessment will benefit them, or the EPD will benefit them, or the sustainability framework and ESG sustainability will help them. So that's why I'm thinking of if we can have both parties side by side and have some sort of initiatives and support and incentive from the government to the private sector, this will have a greater impact.
Great, thank you. Any other comments? There's a bunch in the chat box about these three should not really be separate options, more support and collaboration, environmental and sustainability declarations and communications, and so on. All really excellent points. Consumers are key in LCA development, absolutely. I think that's a really important point that you've mentioned here, Bindu. Anyone else?
Yes, I would just want to highlight that circular economy is a global trend, and we have to also guide this process and make sure everything is taken into account. And I think life cycle thinking is very important in this process. In fact, as LC community, we finally get the TC 323 of ISO on circular economy to consider life cycle thinking as an overarching principle. But I think at the practical level, there's still not a knowledge, not a understanding that the importance of this. And I think because it's a global trend, we have to put some effort in this area. That's it.
Thank you very much. That's a really important. Mm-hmm. Yes,
yeah,
please go
actually,
ahead.
I agree with Ahmed and Claudia about trying to make it as compliance. Try to make more effort on teaching people how to what is LCA first, and it's kind of actually I'm talking from a developing country, from Egypt, and currently we are organizing an LCA training, and actually Llorenç and Claudia and Sonia and they already worked with us in this training, but at the background it was very difficult to organize such training. Why? Because of compliance, because of People are not interested much. They don't know much. So what I suggest is just to have a different mindset in between the advanced countries in this area, I mean Europe and US, and looking at the developing countries. We are suffering in LCA. Maybe somebody in the chat box talked about the data. So we having very big problems in data. People think that sharing data is killing for them. So carrying out an LCA is a bit problematic in some parts of the world. So our mindset and our focus and our strategy in the next period should be directed to how to get people involved, how to get people know more. So government here in these parts of the world has the highest hand in this area. So teaching governments, actually our training was sponsored by Ministry of Environment. So, but still when we talk to the people, so at lower level, they only know about environmental impact assessment. So they don't know much about LCA. They don't know much about LC initiative. So I mean, we need to direct our future effort to reach out with governments and with people who are active in some countries or in developing countries in how and help them help them in their efforts spreading out life cycle thinking and life cycle assessment. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. That these are all really important views and very critical feedback areas. So all taken into account, and there will be more opportunity in the questionnaire that we share tomorrow to provide more substance and more detailed views. So just being mindful of the time, I think we'll move on to the next two questions and before we close the meeting. If we can go back to the presentation, Rowena. Excellent. So now we've had a bit of a discussion on the assessment of the mission, of the two main areas in the mission. Some discussion on what really should be the priority impact areas. Now, given that we had this discussion on the priority impact areas, we would be keen to know from you in the chat box, please. Then, what is it that the Life Cycle Initiative should do more of in that mission, two-pronged mission that the initiative has? Does the initiative need to focus on advancing the understanding of life cycle thinking by private and public decision makers, and the other way around, decision-making process by life cycle experts? Or would it be to put more focus and effort on building consensus and facilitating the access to knowledge? It's a difficult choice, completely agree, but keen to know your views on whether it should be A or B, and why you think this should be the focus or area of greater focus in the next 5 years. Just very quickly, closing out this part of the discussion, thank you very much for sharing your views and your very invaluable feedback. There will be more opportunity in the questionnaire. If you could quickly write in the chat box as I sign off on what your expectations from the LCI strategy for the next 5 years would be, just in 3 words, that would be great. Again, thank you very much for your time, and I wish you a wonderful rest of the week and rest of the General Assembly. Thanks.
And now Thad is already ready, as you can hopefully see in your cameras. So please, Thad will update us on the communication and outreach of the initiative as the next section of this assembly. Thank you, Thad.
Thank you, Llorenç. I'm going to try to go quickly before everything breaks and I get some problems, technical difficulties. Let's hope that it holds out for the next couple of minutes. It's going to be pretty short. Happy to be here for the 5th time to give you guys more or less a review of our communication and outreach. You can go to the next slide, please. Basically, we have our home base, which is the website. I'm sure most of you are aware of it. Again, for the new people who may be joining us, go there. That's the repository of all our knowledge since practically day one. We have our LinkedIn and Twitter social media profiles, and that's where really the breaking news is published. For example, this awesome news that Llorenç is going to be making at the end of the session. That kind of news is the type of thing that you'll find on our social profiles, as well as publications, events coming up. Our YouTube channel, it's something that we don't talk about that often, but it has been getting a lot of inputs over the last months, and I'd like to show you the screenshot of that on the next slide. Yeah, it's got quite a good variety of material. We've got our recorded webinars there. We have overviews of projects and publications, short clips that you can use either also in your work to promote these different elements of our work areas. We have publication launches that are also recorded there, and they give quite good detailed information about those new publications. We also have training. You can see a few different training modules there, also in different languages, which is important. We've got a good amount of material in English, obviously, but also in French and in Spanish. So in case you could use those different language materials, please feel free to browse the YouTube channel and let us know what has been most interesting for you. You can go to the next slide, please. And finally, we have our LCNet newsletter every 2 months. If you've missed a couple of editions, you can find them on the website. There's the link there. So we're interested to share the news and the jobs in the lifecycle community, which you are a part of. And we encourage you to send in your content and also your ideas for subject areas that we could cover that you think would be of interest to the broader community. So we encourage you to send your input and ideas to the info@lifecycleinitiative.org email address. And again, if there's something you think is missing from our website, from some of the projects that we're working on, if you think there's an announcement that we should make, some news that would be interesting for the community, definitely let us know at that email address, and we will do our best to pass it on. That's it. Did I miss anything, Llorenç?
I think that was very good, very useful as usual. Thank you so much, Thad, and definitely, I mean, please keep these ideas coming. You spoke about jobs. Indeed, might not be the most relevant for. Well, actually, I think that's a relevant one for absolutely everybody. Either if you're seeking a job or you're actually wanting to recruit the best person. I have to say, in the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've been receiving personal requests from many of you who are struggling to find the right LCA expert. We are in high demand, apparently. So this is indeed probably a good sign. It's also extremely annoying when you are the one trying to recruit and it's difficult to find the right person. So what I know is that when we've been posting jobs in the Lifecycle newsletter, there's usually quite a lot of good response. So very much encourage you to send us and to consider that the Lifecycle Net newsletter comes out at the beginning of the odd months, so January, March, etc. If you can plan it around that, please send us your ads in advance, and obviously any other content that you think is relevant as well to share. Just reminding you that we cannot share contents of a commercial nature, of course. So if you are selling a course or selling a book, sorry, we will not be able to to include that one. So yes, I think with that we can move to the next session, and we're really getting close to the end. We're not going to take too much time on this, but as mentioned in the beginning, and as many of you know, hopefully you've been reading as well through the newsletter, the Life Cycle Initiative is turning 20 next year. I think I saw it was in April. Somebody gave me the exact date when the initiative was officially launched. I was there, not in the launch itself, but I was there already participating, as many of you, from the start in the Life Cycle Initiative. And some of you were actually signing on that. So I said that, Olivier, as one of the funding fathers, as I mentioned earlier. But anyway, the occasion requires that we do something, and we are already planning on some events, non-events, communications. So if you have ideas on how you would like to see the Life Cycle Initiative celebrating its 20th anniversary, please send them through as well. And stay tuned. Hopefully, we will be able to organize as well something around an event that will also happen next year, because at the same time that the initiative is turning 20, UNEP is turning 50. And the conference that took place in June 1972 in Stockholm, which is where UNEP was created, as well as other important environmental and sustainability initiatives and organizations around the world. So that conference of Stockholm at 50 is also being celebrated. So next year is going to be full of events, and we will be piggybacking on some of these to celebrate the initiative's anniversary. I think I saw a hand coming up. So if you want to have a quick intervention, please do say it now. Just unmute yourselves and come forward. I seem to have seen a hand, but otherwise, maybe I saw it wrong. Otherwise, we will not stop. We will not stay longer in this point, and we can move to the next one, which is also exciting for many of you. And we have our very own Rowena, who will be explaining the voting rules and how the steering committee elections will work. So Rowena, over to you, please. Thank you.
Yes, hi again, everyone. Just to reintroduce myself, I'm Rowena, so I'm one of the current interns with the Life Cycle Initiative, but closing up, finishing next week. So yeah, just want to say I've really enjoyed my time, and yeah, this is a very nice conclusion to my 6 months with the Life Cycle Initiative. But yeah, so I'm here to talk about the steering committee elections, which is one of the main reasons why we've gathered you here, you know, to present the updates on our various projects, but also to elect 3 new members to the steering committee. So I'm just going to quickly run you through the process and the next steps. So as you probably already know, the steering committee is made up of 10 members. So we've got 3 from the government constituency, 3 from the business constituency, 2 from science and civil society institutions, 1 individual, and 1 from UNEP. And this year's election will be to appoint a new government representative, a new business representative, and a new individual member to the steering committee. So this means that those who are in the science and civil society institutions will not be up for election nor voting this year. So as well as representation within the constituencies, the steering committee also requires regional representation. So based on the current and ongoing steering committee members, there are certain regions from which members were not eligible or who were encouraged to run, and all of those details you can see on the screen here. So on the screen now, as well as in most of our communication with you recently in our most recent newsletter, we hope you will have seen the candidates who are up for election this year. So we've got 3 government candidates: the Ministry of Environment and Sustainable Development of Argentina, the National Science and Technology Development Agency of Thailand, the National Cleaner Production Center of South Africa. And then in the business constituency, we have 4. So we have the Zero Waste and Sustainability School based in the US, the EHS Techniques based in Spain, the Hub EPD of Latin America, and the ECO-ED of Chile. And now you have to forgive me because I might mispronounce some of these names, so I apologize in advance. We have 9 individuals up for election this year. We have Marcelo Langer of Brazil. We have Eman Alaeldin Abdel Fattah of Egypt. We have Nasser Ayub of Egypt. We have Nebiye Leul Jezese of Ethiopia. We have Navneet Agarwal of India, Joni Jupesta of Indonesia, Dewi Permatasari of Indonesia, CH Rama Krishnachari of Kuwait, and Nafat Chachavalkosol of Thailand. Sorry about that. I hope I didn't mispronounce too badly. But yeah, so more information about all of these candidates can be found on the Life Cycle Initiative website, which I think also will be posted in the chat, the link to where you can find that on the website, but also through the voting system, which I will now be explaining. So as mentioned previously, the science and civil society institutions are not eligible for voting this year, so none of this will apply to you. After this event, a voting link will be sent to you by email, so make sure to check your spam folder just in case. It might go there by accident. In that email, there will be a link and a code that you can use to vote for the candidate within your constituency, so you can't vote for a candidate who is not in the constituency of which you are a member. The voting will start right after this meeting, so in 15 minutes at 3:30 Paris time, and it will end on Tuesday night, so that's the 28th of September at midnight Paris time. The results will then be communicated to everyone via our usual channels on the 1st of October. Yeah, and I think that's everything. I hope that's all clear. Feel free to put a message in the chat if any of that is unclear, and best of luck to all the candidates. And I will now hand it back over to Llorenç.
Thank you so much, Rowena. That was greatly presented. And the only thing is we wanted also to share the link to the full biographies of all the descriptions of all the candidates. I was about to do that, but I'm also blocked from the chat, so I am very sorry. But we will be. I'm asking somebody from the team, if possible, to share that link to the newsletter where actually that was described in the last newsletter. So thanks again, Rowena, for yes, that.
As Rowena mentioned, as soon as the email goes out and the people log in to see their ballot, there is a little eye to the right of the name of the organization or person, which has all the information on the bio. So if nobody can paste the information into the chat, on the ballot itself, that full information is available.
That's great to know that. Yes, absolutely. That's true. But yeah, just in case anybody wants to read it first. In any case, it was also, I mean, if you go to the website and you go to the previous, so to the newsletter of September, all the information is there as well, and the link to the right description. So we will do our best to paste the link. I think members of the team have one by one been excluded from the chat, so that's that's pretty annoying and unfortunate, also unexpected, but we will get there. So thanks again, Rowena, for the explanations. And now we have some time left. We have actually 15 minutes left of the allocated time to discuss any other business, any other questions that were still pending, and also to discuss obviously the expected announcement that I promised you a while ago. So while we wait that maybe others, those lucky ones who have access to the chat, post any questions in the chat, or if anybody is raising their hands, which I'm checking, but I don't see. I will just remind you of what's this expected or unexpected news that I wanted to share. And of course, I guess many of you are already privy to this information because we shared it since last night through social media, and many of you were already expecting it. Because we now have an open position to join as a UNEP staff and join the support, the team working on life cycle and supporting directly the life cycle initiative. So that position was left open, as you know, by Feng Wang, who spoke earlier today. And finally, well, as you know, things go sometimes not super fast in UNEP. But that position is now open. So we shared the link through social media, through the different channels, and also now, if anybody has access to the chat and can post that link, we will do that. But this is important because actually some of you might actually be willing to apply as candidates, but otherwise you might know the right person out there. So you know, we want the best, as you know, every time. So that was the excitement. Well, I hope it's exciting for you. It's really exciting for us to make this announcement. If there's any other questions or any other comments that you would like to make, now is the time. As we have still a few minutes, if there are no more questions, I mean, I would also encourage you to just switch on your microphone, unmute yourself, as we said, and speak up if you want to make any comment or any contribution. And otherwise, we will be closing soon the General Assembly, which, well, closing a few minutes early, I'm sure it's not going to be annoying to anybody. Do I hear somebody?
Yeah. Hi, good afternoon or good evening.
Good evening.
This is Ramakrishnachari from Kuwait. Actually, it is a very amazing session. Last few hours, like we were going through so many updates. Like last 2-3 sessions, I was participating, but this session, I think it's something very drastic updates and so many improvements in the projects. Really appreciate all the team who are behind this developments and the initiative team members. Congratulations to everybody. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Well, that's very appreciated, and thanks for saying it out loud. Yeah, we also like this kind of comments. Thanks again.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Thank you. I see Tiago put his camera on, so I don't know if you want to make an intervention as well.
Oh yeah, just very quickly. As some of you know, that I'm from IBICT, one of the members of the government in the steering committee, and we are unfortunately stepping out. We have reached the deadline of our participation, and I hope we will still able to contribute in other ways, because it was a very, very good experience working with you guys, knowing you. And fortunately, I had the opportunity to know you in person, Llorenç and other colleagues in Brazil and in Europe. It was maybe the greatest moments in my professional career, personally speaking. And of course, for IBICT, it was a huge experience. It's due to this experience with Life Cycle Initiative that we are so well respected and known in Brazil for LCA, LCT issues. So thanks a lot for this wonderful experience. Good luck for the next candidates and representatives from the government and the other memberships types, and hope to stay in tune with you guys. Bye bye.
Thank you so much, Tiago. That was very nice, and indeed, yes, maybe that's something we should really say a word of appreciation to IBIC for the many years of partnership, which we definitely hope that will continue, even if you're stepping down from the steering committee. So thanks again also for that comment. And I see Dewi has her hand raised, so please take the floor.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Dewi Permatasari from Indonesia. Actually, I've been working for decades during these times about environmental and these life cycle initiatives, and all the activity is really broadening my horizons, because it's actually life cycle assessment is the center of everything about the environment that conjunct the global climate change problem throughout these years. So I'm going to say my very thank you for for the committee to arrange all the activity like this, because this is really good ideas comes throughout all the participants. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dewi. That's also very encouraging to hear. Excellent. Do we have any other comments or questions or any other business that colleagues want to share?
I have just seen a message in the chat asking about the voting, how to vote. So I've put the slide back on about this. Can I register my email is the question. If you're attending this meeting, you should be a member already, so that should be fine. You will automatically get an email in your inbox, but it won't be until 3:30, I think. So just check your inbox then, and it should all be pretty clear from there.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rowena. Indeed, the voting, just sorry, but yeah, the voting, just as the General Assembly is shared with the members, those are the ones who can vote for the steering committee. So indeed, you will receive it automatically. In principle, if you've been receiving these emails, it should be fine that you will receive as well that one. But in any case, check your spam folders just in case as well later today or tomorrow if you're going to bed, which I hope many of you will be right after the General Assembly. But indeed, yeah, that will arrive after the General Assembly. I also wanted to say, and Tiago, thanks for making me think of that, because Barbara Sibit as well, whom you've seen as well participating, but she's also stepping down as the steering committee, as the individual member who has very actively held the baton of the individual members of the Science and Civil Society constituency. So let me extend also this word of appreciation for all her work. And of course, we have the other member of the steering committee, the EPD hub of Latin America, who has been represented by Claudia Peña and Nydia Suppen in the steering committee. Their turn is coming to an end, but they are also stepping forward again in the election. So it might not be the last time that they are steering committee, or maybe yes, we don't know. We will see, and that's the exciting news of the elections that will be starting as of this afternoon. So those of you who are lucky to vote, UNEP, as you know, obviously we don't vote. We have kind of a seat in the steering committee, but we don't vote for anybody else. So, but those of you who can vote for your constituency, please participate actively. This is also a way of participating to the initiative and ensuring that those who you think can do the best job in driving the steering committee, ensuring that those participants, those institutions, those individuals are there. So unless there are other questions, and I don't see any, but now I don't trust that I would see them. So if there's any other question, please unmute yourself and chip in. Otherwise, we will be wrapping this up and coming to a close. Thank you, Rowena, for that last slide. Barbara, sorry, now I see that your camera is also on, so maybe if you want to say one final word, that will be super appreciated.
No, thank you, Llorenç. I put everything in the box chat and in the chat box, I'm sorry, and just saying thank you for these 3 years. It was very, very interesting, and I feel honored to be part of the steering committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Barbara. That's very nice. And yeah, sorry for putting you on the spot, but Tiago started. Anyway, thanks again, and yeah, thanks also, Rowena, for putting the last slide. I mean, obviously, to encourage absolutely everybody that, well, you're obviously already members, but you can also encourage others who you think will contribute significantly to the initiative. Encourage them to become members. And importantly, as a reminder, the whole point is to be active members. So to act and to contribute in the best ways that you can. A few members, very, very few, are funding partners. These are extremely important, but they are not the ones that do all the job. So they contribute significantly with the funding. We also need all of you who, even if you cannot fund, you can certainly contribute actively to spread the word, to apply the products of the Life Cycle Initiative, and to ensure that life cycle thinking is strongly embedded in the relevant processes worldwide. We have only one planet. I need to avoid saying the bad words, but we're really not doing a very good job at keeping it. And life cycle thinking is needed to ensure that we continue surviving in this planet of ours. So we'll leave it at that. Thank you again, everybody, for your active participation. Have a great rest of the day or night, depending on where you are. And we very much look forward to seeing you participating actively in the General Assembly voting, in the steering committee voting, and look forward to be continuing to work with you in the coming months. Thank you so much, and thanks. I can hear almost all the applause and the hearts that are popping up in my screen. So this is this is the new normal. Thank you so much again, and speak soon. Cheers.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye,
everyone.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you.